Chapter 11:17. Priestley, will there be any strong winds tonight? Li Zixuan asked as he bumped into Li Chunfeng when he arrived at the academy. He was just a fake Taoist priest and a fake astronomer. How could he know anything about the weather and the weather? Li Chunfeng thought that Li Zixuan was not good at this and did not suspect anything. He looked up at the sky and said, "Marquis, there is no strong wind tonight." Li Zixuan heaved a sigh of relief. He quickly ordered his men to set the banquet at the academy's field. He was worried that the wind would blow tonight, so he set the banquet at the cafeteria. However, since Li Chunfeng said that there was no wind tonight, he had nothing to worry about. Li Zixuan trusted Li Chunfeng's weather forecast 100%. "If you're free tonight, how about having hot pot with me?" Although Li Chunfeng was not an official teacher of the academy, Li Gang had assigned him a dormitory because he often observed the sky at night in the Cloud Mountain. This way, he would not have nowhere to stay at night. "Since the Marquis has invited me, how can I not go? This is the first time I've heard of hot pot. Today is a good opportunity to broaden my horizons." Li Chunfeng placed his hands behind his back and chuckled. Li Zixuan was curious to see how Li Chunfeng would look like when he ate the hot pot. He wondered how Li Chunfeng would look like. "Haha, I won't disappoint you." After knowing that the hot pot banquet was going to be held at the field, the students of the academy moved the tables, chairs, coal stoves, and even torches. The group of servants that Li Zixuan had brought along distributed the mutton, fish slices, bean sprouts, and other hot pot ingredients to each table. Strictly speaking, there were 8 people around one stove tonight. Just the students alone had more than 80 stoves. Including the academy's teachers, there were more than 100 stoves. It was a spectacular scene. Fortunately, there was no wind tonight. Otherwise, they would have to hold the hot pot banquet in the cafeteria. With so many coal stoves in the cafeteria, wouldn't they be poisoned? With all the ingredients on the table, there was no opening speech. Li Zixuan only shouted, "Let's eat." Then, the students and teachers around the stove began to dig in. In the beginning, only Li Zixuan, Li Tai, Cheng Chumo, Qin Huayu, Yuchi Baolin, and the others were eating. This was because the others didn't know how to eat the raw ingredients around them. Fortunately, humans were very good at imitating. When the people nearby saw how Li Zixuan, Li Tai, and the others ate, they all followed suit. They began to dip the ingredients in the pot and dip them in the sauce to eat. It was like a stone falling into a lake. In the beginning, only the area near the point of impact was affected by the ripples, but as the ripples spread, the water surface further away would also be affected. Not long after, word spread from 1 to 10, and from 10 to 100. Basically, all the teachers and students on the field knew how to eat the so-called hot pot. Oh, delicious. It's so delicious. Is this still mutton? How come I've never eaten such delicious mutton before? Sun Zifen dipped his chopsticks into the mutton, dipped it in the sauce, and put it into his mouth. The freshness of the mutton combined with the saltiness of the sauce almost made him swallow his own tongue. Delicious, it's really delicious. Li Tai didn't even raise his head. He was stuffing food into his mouth as he spoke vaguely. It wasn't that he was a reincarnation of a hungry ghost, but that the people around the stove were a bunch of animals. If he was like Sun Zifen, that idiot, he wouldn't be able to eat anything in a while and could only drink the soup. No one in the academy would accommodate him just because he was the Prince of Wei. F***CK. Ching Chumo, are you a F***king pig? Baolin, why did you steal my food? Little Ku, you eat so fast too? Sun Zifen, who was lamenting for a while, looked down and was shocked. He could only hear him wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf. This way of eating has a different flavor. I've eaten dozens of years of food before, but it doesn't seem to add up to the amount of food I've eaten in a year at the academy. Yanwan College is really a paradise on earth. Hee. Li Gang, Yin, Silu, Li Zixuan, and the heads of the 5 academic departments were originally sitting at the same table. However, Li Gang's grandson, Li Onren, was called to another table by the drunkard. Li Gang's little grandson, Li Onren, was able to take the seat as he wished. At this time, Li Gang tasted the mutton rolls that were dipped in the sauce with his chopsticks. He squinted his eyes and praised. Li Wenji, I might not agree with other things you said, but I agree with this sentence very much. In the entire academy, there was only one person who dared to call Li Gang that. It was probably only the bearded man. This old hooligan didn't submit to anyone but Li Zishuan. As for Li Gang, this great scholar, he used to disdain him. However, after getting along with him for a long time, he would often bicker with him. At this moment, the bearded man ate a large portion of the mutton and drank a mouthful of iced wine. The hot and cold wine stimulated all the taste buds in his mouth. The mellow wine aroma made the fresh taste of the mutton roll even more intense. The bearded man had traveled all over the world in his life, but he had never enjoyed so much. At this time, when he heard Li Gang's praise, he couldn't help but loudly echo. Li Gang shook his head. He didn't get angry because of the bearded man's rudeness. He must have gotten used to it. Mr. Bearded Man, why is your wine still smoking? Did you put it in the pot to cook? Leonrin's eyesight was quite good. He could actually see the white smoke coming out of the bearded man's cup under the light of the torch. Hey, Onrin, when you grow up, you must go to Yinhuang College. Don't be like your grandfather and spend your whole life studying. Do you understand? The bearded man smiled at Leonrin and said, You're not allowed to talk about my grandfather. Leonrin pouted and said crisply, Hey, the bearded man shook his head. He pointed to the wine cup in his hand and said, Do you know why I told you to go to Yinhuang College? Do you see? When ordinary people see that my cup is smoking, they think that the things in the cup must be hot. However, the students from Yinhuang College don't think that way, because they know that an ice-cold cup will also emit white smoke in a hotter environment. Hey, you said that your grandfather's studies were superficial. Are there such things in it? Definitely not. The heavens took pity on him. The dignified pirate leader who traversed the 4 seas actually understood science. Li Zishuan, who was drinking a mouthful of wine, almost spat it out. If the pirate leader understood science, then those small island nations on the sea would have no way to survive. Wasn't this too cruel? Chapter 11:18. Come. Eat meat, eat meat. There's still a lot of mutton left. During the meal, Li Zishuan kept persuading Li Gang, Yin Silu, and the rest to eat more mutton. As for himself, he only took a few bean sprouts. Ma Zhou was touched. He thought that Li Zishuan would leave the meat for them and only eat vegetables. Yamacho, you should eat some mutton too. There's still so much left. We can't finish it with so few people. Ma Zhou wanted to rinse the mutton with his chopsticks and put it into Li Zishuan's bowl, but Li Zishuan quickly stopped him. Hey. Stop. Brother Ma, I'm allergic to mutton. I can't eat mutton. So, to prevent me from getting sick, you must finish all the mutton on the table. If you don't finish it, you're not giving me face. In a moment of desperation, this guy started to talk nonsense. Yamacho, what's allergy? Ma Zhou said with a puzzled expression. Li Zishuan was stunned. He quickly explained, It's just that you're not used to it. You'll feel uncomfortable all over if you eat it. Oh, there's such a thing? Ma Zhou was even more puzzled. How could anyone eat mutton until they felt uncomfortable? Seeing old Ma's dumbfounded expression, Li Zishuan hurriedly called out, Mr. Li, Mr. Yin, Mr. Mo, hurry up and eat. And run, hurry up and eat. You have to know that you can't eat this kind of tender mutton anywhere else. Although the few big shots of the academy felt that Li Zishuan was a little strange, they couldn't pinpoint what was strange about it. They could only eat as they were told. Young master, I brought the things you wanted. Halfway through the hot pot, Sam Bao came over and whispered in Li Zishuan's ear. I got it. Li Zishuan nodded and replied softly. The ears of the bearded guest, who was eating large chunks of meat and drinking large bowls of wine, trembled slightly, but he did not take any further action. After a while, Li Zishuan left the table without anyone noticing. But after a while, the teachers and students on the field smelled that something was wrong. Why did he say that he smelled something wrong? Because it smelled so good. What was that smell? It smells so good. Oh, it smells like barbecue. Look, Yamacho is barbecuing meat. A group of people raised their heads and sniffed, trying to find the source of the fragrance. Someone shouted, and everyone's eyes instantly turned to Li Zishuan. Li Zixuan was leisurely barbecuing a rabbit on a square grill. He kept turning it while sprinkling salt, pepper, cumin, and other condiments on it. The rabbit's body was already golden brown, and drops of oil dripped from it from time to time, making sizzling sounds when they landed on the flames. Just looking at this rabbit was enough to whet one's appetite, not to mention the waves of fragrance that were constantly wafting in this direction. The teachers and students on the field all looked eagerly at Li Zixuan. F***CK. That's my rabbit. Burp. Ching Chumo sighed and couldn't help but burp. Who asked him to eat too quickly just now? He was completely full now. The greatest helplessness in life was when one's stomach was full, when one encountered delicious food. Barbecued rabbit. Yamacho is barbecuing a rabbit. It smells so good. I didn't expect a barbecued rabbit to be so fragrant. Burp. It smells so good, but I'm so full. Barbecued meat was actually not a patent of modern people. Compared to modern people, the ancient people's love for barbecued meat could be said to be even greater. The Book of Songs said, "The head of the rabbit, the roasted meat of the cannon. The gentleman has wine, and he offers it with discretion." The meaning was, barbecued rabbit is wine. The more you eat, the better. By the Han Dynasty, barbecuing had already become a culture. According to historical records, Emperor Gaozu of the Han Dynasty, Liu Bang, often barbecued deer liver raw to go with wine. Emperor Zhao of the Han Dynasty also once held a barbecue festival. As the saying went, if a worker wants to do a good job, he must first sharpen his tools. As early as the end of the Warring States period, cloud-patterned square grills specialized in barbecuing appeared. The grill that Li Zixuan was using now had a rough outline similar to the cloud-patterned square grill. San Bao found it in the workshop at the foot of the mountain. Although the barbecued rabbit was fragrant, the students' stomachs were already full. They could only snort the rabbit. TSK. It should be about time. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Li Zixuan put the rabbit meat to his nose and took a sniff. He clicked his tongue and sighed. Everyone's face was full of black lines. They secretly thought that their Yamacho was too despicable. They clearly had better food, but they left it for last. Eat. Why are you all looking at me? Hurry up and eat. Whoever has leftovers on the table tonight will have to wash all the dishes today. Li Zixuan pointed at Chung Chumo's table and said loudly. All the students were shocked. What a joke. How many bowls and chopsticks were there? Wouldn't it be tiring to wash all of them? So, F***CK. Chung Chumo. These dishes are clearly on your plate. Why did you put them in my bowl? Bullsh *T. They were yours in the first place. There was a commotion from the crowd. Li Zixuan didn't pay any attention to these students. He carried the roasted rabbit and walked back to his previous table. Come. I just finished barbecued rabbit. Mr. Li, Mr. Yin, Mr. Ramon, Mr. Su, Mr. Xiao, Brother Ma. Do you all want some? Li Zixuan put the rabbit on an iron plate and took out a dagger from somewhere. He smiled and said to the people around the stove, Yamacho, you're really, burp, I'm not eating anymore. I really can't eat anymore. Ma Zhou wanted to say that Li Zixuan was despicable, but halfway through, he couldn't help but burp. He shook his head and waved his hand. Everyone else was speechless. Li Anren's little face was bitter. Brother Xiao Xian, this rabbit meat is really fragrant, but Anren's stomach is too full. Brother Xiao Xian, can you leave some for Anren to eat tomorrow? Li Zixuan laughed loudly and said, Good, I'll leave a rabbit leg for Anren. Hey, Yamacho, since you gentlemen have no more space in your stomachs, why don't I help you share the burden? Suddenly, the bearded guest came behind Li Zixuan with a wine bowl and said, he had been paying attention to Li Zixuan's movements. When Li Zixuan first started barbecuing the rabbit, he saw it and immediately slowed down his eating speed. In addition, his martial arts realm was the best in the world. Not to mention one rabbit. Even if there were two, he could finish it. This time, it was Li Zixuan's turn to be helpless. He only wanted to be mischievous, but the bearded guest didn't let him be. How depressing. Since Mr. Zhang-san can still eat, then please. Li Zixuan invited with a smile. Then I'll drink a few cups with Yamacho. The bearded man laughed heartily, while Li Zixuan held his forehead with his hand, feeling a headache coming on. Chapter 11:19. The grand hot pot banquet for 100 people lasted until midnight before the students and teachers of the academy left. Everyone was very tired these days, but after eating this hot pot banquet, especially after receiving Li Zixuan's affirmation, the students suddenly felt less tired. They did not regret choosing to stay during the previous holiday, because this winter holiday was very meaningful for many of them. Set a heart for heaven and earth, and set a life for the people. This was not only Li Zixuan's dream, but also their dream, and they had always been acting like this. They had walked a long way on this road, but there is still a long way to go. Fortunately, for everyone, they were not alone on the road ahead. They all had a group of like-minded companions to forge ahead together. When Li Zixuan returned to the courtyard, Han Yushi had already fallen asleep. As for the other two courtyards, when he came back and passed by, he found that the lights inside were already out. Presumably, his father, mother, grandfather, and grandmother had already fallen asleep. After all, it was close to the end of the year, and he suddenly decided to spend the new year in Yinshan. His father and mother would definitely have a lot of things to arrange the next day. Li Zixuan did not wake up the two maids, Xiao He and Xiao Shi. He casually washed up and quietly went back to his room to sleep. 2 months. I can have another 2 months of holiday. Li Zixuan lay on the bed and looked at the ceiling. He could feel his wife's gentle breathing beside him and could not help but sigh in his heart. Being grounded for 2 months was torture for others, but for him, it was a holiday. Since Yanwang College was established, he basically did not have a day of leisure. If he was not busy at the academy, he would be giving advice at the workshop. Now that he had 2 months of holiday, he should spend some time with his family. After all, he worked so hard to earn a family business so that everyone in the family could live a carefree life and not be bullied by others. Imperial Palace, Lijing Palace. Lier had just finished reviewing the memorials and came to Empress Zhang's son to lie down. He suddenly muttered, "I heard that Li Zixuan is treating the students of Yanhuang College to hot pot in Yinshan tonight. This stinking brat actually ignored my order of confinement. How preposterous!" Empress Zhang's son was stunned. Chang'el and Li Changxian didn't tell her or Li Er about this after they returned to the palace. After being stunned for a moment, she said, "Your Majesty, you only restricted the Marquis of Yong'an, but you didn't specify where. He had a home in Yongla Lane, and he also had a home in Cloud Mountain. So strictly speaking, he is not disobeying His Majesty's decree." Although she understood that Li Zixuan was not really angry, Empress Zhang's son still defended him because she knew that Li Zixuan's role in the Tang Dynasty was irreplaceable. Li Er was amused. "Oof, no wonder this brat dared to go to Cloud Mountain so openly. It turned out that he had such a plan. Maid Guanyin, look at how bold he is to play petty tricks in front of me." Empress Zhang's son covered her mouth and laughed. "It's mainly because your Majesty is broad-minded. Otherwise, the Marquis of Yong and wouldn't be like this. This is the sign of a prosperous era. Haha, let's not talk about it. Let me see if Maid Guanyin is broad-minded or not." Lier suddenly laughed evilly. His hands and feet started to move, which naturally caused a wave of coquettish anger. "Your Majesty." The next day, Li Zixuan originally planned to sleep in, but things like biological clocks couldn't be changed so easily. Just after 7 in the morning, he got up. When he went downstairs, he saw his father, mother, and the 3 members of the Yi family all come over. Although their family lived in different courtyards, they still ate together. The distance between the courtyards wasn't far. "Little Xian, your Yanwang College is really imposing. Previously, grandmother heard that you built an academy in Nanyang. She thought it was just a few straw huts, but how is this a straw hut? It's simply a paradise on earth. After dinner, I have to go to the academy to take a good look." "Oh, right. Does your academy allow outsiders to enter?" Seeing Li Zixuan come down, old Madame Yi happily chattered. Yi Guozhong, who was beside her, was also moved. However, due to the restraint of an elder, he didn't say anything. He only stroked his beard and kept glancing at Li Zixuan. Lisa Schwan couldn't help but laugh. Grandmother, the academy naturally doesn't allow outsiders to enter. However, since you want to go, you can go as many times as you want. Old Madam Yu was excited at first, but then she waved her hand and said, That won't do. Although grandmother can't help you much, I can't break the rules you set. Grandmother can just take a look from outside. Compared to those people in his previous life who liked to use connections to get in through the back door, this grandmother of his was really kind and reasonable. Lisa Schwan couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Mother, the academy is on holiday now. You can go and take a look if you want. It's not considered breaking the rules. Yi Yuzhu hurriedly persuaded. Lisa Schwan also nodded and said, Grandmother, my mother is right. The academy is on holiday now. You can go as you wish. Old Madam Yi then replied, Haha, that's good. Since it's not considered breaking the rules, I'll go and take a look today. After breakfast, the Yi family of 3 went to Yanhuang College accompanied by Mrs. Li. Lisa Schwan wrote a note and handed it to Han Yushi. He said, Yushi, if you go to the foundation today, remember to hang this message outside the foundation's gate. Han Yushi looked at the content of the note strangely and was suddenly shocked. She said, Husband, did His Majesty agree to this? Lisa Schwan said proudly, Of course. Look at what you're saying, wife. If His Majesty didn't agree, how would your husband have the guts to make a private decision? Han Yushi patted her chest and sighed in relief. She said, Phew, that's good. I'm going to the foundation today, so I'll help my husband announce this announcement. Be careful, wife. Latest announcement. From this year onwards, the businessman who donates the most to the Warm Tang Foundation will be awarded the title of Righteous Businessman by the Imperial Court. Today, the Warm Tang Foundation opened its doors as usual. Although there were fewer people who came to donate money than usual, there were still some people. The people in line quickly realized that the foundation today was different from usual. There was an eye-catching sign at the entrance, and the words on the sign were as follows. Everyone was shocked. Righteous Businessman. The Warm Tang Foundation actually had the power to be recognized by the Imperial Court as a righteous businessman. This was serious news. Chapter 11:20. Old Master. Old Master. Big news. Big news. Chongren Lane, Chow family's courtyard. A servant in a green shirt and a gray hat rushed in and said as he ran. Old Master Chow was flipping through the latest issue of the Tang Daily. The Tang Daily had developed to this point. Other than reporting on recent news, there were also many business opportunities in it. For example, there was a shortage of coal in Bing Province and Qinzhou. For businessmen, if they could capture business opportunities immediately, it meant that there was a chance to make money. What's the fuss about? Chow Wendong frowned when he heard the servants shouting outside. Old Master. Big news. Today, a notice was posted in front of the Warm Tang Foundation. It says that from this year onwards, the person who donates the most money will be rewarded with the title of Righteous Merchant. The servant pushed the door open and bowed. If the superiors were good, the subordinates would be even better. Chow Wendong had wanted the title of Righteous Merchant for a long time. The servants of the Chow family naturally paid attention to this news. Wasn't there a servant who came to report the news as soon as it was released? Smack! Chow Wendong slammed the newspaper on the table and stood up. What? The Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce wants to give the person who donates the most money the title of Righteous Merchant? The servant replied, Yes, old master. Chow Wendong's eyes widened and his breathing quickened. He said, Is the source reliable? The servant said confidently, Don't worry, old master. I personally saw the notice posted in front of the Warm Tang Foundation. It can't be fake. Huff. Chow Wendong took a deep breath. His eyes flashed, and he immediately ordered, Get the 7 shopkeepers to come to me immediately. Yes, old master. Sigh. There's no hope for our Lin family this year. Some families were happy, while others were sad. When Lin Wenyuan of the Lin family heard the news, his face was full of worry. This was because the Lin family's money was all tied up in the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce. Currently, there was not much money circulating in their accounts. The so-called first good deed of the year was something that the Lin family would not be able to get. Master, Hao is familiar with Han Xiao. Why don't we let him ask Han Xiao to beg the Marquis of Yong and to release a batch of bicycles for our family? They will definitely sell well. When the time comes, I'll have extra money. Madame Lin thought of an idea and said, No. Lin Wenyuan didn't even think about it and directly refused. It's how Er's good fortune to be friends with Mr. Han. We can't ruin their friendship because of such a small benefit. Even if they had a batch of bicycles now, it would be too late. The Chow family is even more prepared. We can't compare to them no matter what. Now it seems that we can only fight for it next year. Master is right. Zhang Jingyang of Huayuan House donated 10,000 strings of cash to Nuan Tang Foundation. Murong Yinhai of Yongping Square donated 20,000 strings of cash to Nuan Tang Foundation. Qi Hushing of Changshu Square donated 10,000 strings of cash to Nuan Tang Foundation. The Warm Tang Foundation, which had been quiet for almost 10 days, suddenly became lively again. All kinds of large donations came in, attracting circle after circle of passersby. The popularity of the event was even greater than before. Yo, why are there so many people donating money today? And they're all donating 10,000 strings of cash. What's going on? TSK, didn't you see the notice on the door? From this year onwards, the Nuan Tang Foundation will give the title of Righteous Merchant to the businessman who donates the most money every year. It's already the end of the year. Aren't those who won the title of Righteous Merchant in a hurry? Oh, I was wondering why that was. So that's why. Hey, this way, the Nuan Tang Foundation can receive more donations and help more poor people in the future. Of course, I saw the students of Yanwang College in Xinfeng County yesterday delivering coal stoves and clothes to Zhao Mazi's family. The Nuan Tang Foundation is really doing this for our good. Your Majesty is wise. The people gathered outside the Nuan Tang Foundation's gate and discussed. At the same time, they were praising the notice because they all knew that the more donations the Nuan Tang Foundation received, the more poor people would be able to improve their lives. This was a great merit, and, at the same time, something that could benefit them. Chongren Lane's Chow Wendong donates 50,000 strings of cash to the Nuan Tang Foundation. Suddenly, a clap of thunder blasted through the entire and E-Lane. Everyone was stunned. 50,000 strings of cash. Old Master Chow is so generous. Oh my God, Old Master Chow is too kind. This year's Righteous Merchant is definitely going to be him. Of course, in addition to the previous donation, Master Chow has donated a total of 60,000 strings of cash. Lier did not know that the people were praising him. However, when he heard about the notice posted by the Nuan Tang Foundation after the morning assembly, his old face immediately darkened. Bastard! That brat dares to make a decision on his own? Who gave him the guts? Lier slammed the table and stood up angrily. Your Majesty, please calm down. Empress Zhang's son brought a bowl of lotus seed soup over and happened to see Lier throwing a tantrum. She quickly came over to console him. Guanyin, look, isn't that brat getting bolder and bolder? Lier threw the booklet in his hand on the table and snorted. Empress Zhang's son put down the lotus seed soup and picked up the booklet. She opened it and read it seriously. A moment later, she frowned and said hesitantly, Your Majesty, I feel that with the Duke of Yong'an's personality, he would not act on his own in the face of such an important matter. Your Majesty, please think carefully. Did you promise the Duke of Yong'an to do this? Lier raised his eyebrows. Guanyin, you don't believe me? I wouldn't dare. Empress Zhang's son hurriedly bowed. Your Majesty is busy every day, so it's inevitable that you will remember some things incorrectly. Although the Duke of Yong is somewhat frivolous on the surface, he would not be so rash when it comes to matters of right and wrong. Therefore, I would like to be so bold as to ask your Majesty to recall. Lier shook his head. I might remember other things incorrectly, but I will not remember this matter. At the time, Li Zishuan asked me to give rewards to merchants who donated a large amount of money. So I gave him a righteous merchant spot. But that was clearly starting from next year. That brat probably took advantage of a loophole again. Oomph. He's getting bolder and bolder. The specific situation that day was enough. Enough. I will grant you a righteous merchant spot every year. Your Majesty, and does this year count? Scram. Heir's original intention was to start from next year, but he did not expect that Lisa Schwan would take advantage of a loophole again. Your Majesty, this, although the Duke of Yong might have taken advantage of a loophole, considering that he did it for the sake of the people, you should not blame him, right? Empress Zhang's son held back her laughter and persuaded. Chapter 1121. When the civil officials heard the news of donating money to be rewarded with the title of righteous merchant, their reactions were very big. In their eyes, this was no different from Emperor Ling of Han selling his official position. Although the so-called righteous merchant was not an official, simply judging the amount of donations to decide whether to give the title of righteous merchant would damage the credibility of the imperial court and indirectly raise the status of merchants. Therefore, many of the civil officials began to draft memorials at home, planning to ask Heir to take back the imperial decree tomorrow morning. Yes, there were those who agreed and those who disagreed, but no one suspected that the Tang Foundation was faking the imperial decree. Because in everyone's hearts, the Tang Foundation would not be so daring, and Lisa Schwan, who was behind the foundation, would not have the guts either. The mess that Lisa Schwan made, in the end, still had to be cleaned up by Heir. Otherwise, if Lisa Schwan was accused of faking the imperial decree, the great Tang Empire would lose such a peerless genius forever. Husband, in just half a day this morning, the foundation received more than 100,000 strings of coins and donations. The power of this announcement is too great, Han Yushi said excitedly to Lisa Schwan during lunch. Now, only the two of them were left at home. The others were still at Yanwang College. They must have had too much fun in the morning and went to the college cafeteria for lunch. Of course, Lisa Schwan said matter-of-factly as he ate. It said that scholars value their reputation, while merchants value their profits. In fact, scholars and merchants both value their reputation and profits, because with fame, profits will naturally come. Han Yushi thought about it thoughtfully, then nodded. Husband, what you said makes sense. But my husband doesn't seem to value his reputation, nor does he value profits. Lisa Schwan laughed and said, What's the point of valuing those things? As long as our family can live happily for the rest of our lives, that's enough. Wife, don't you think so? Yes. Han Yushi nodded her head heavily. After getting married, she finally understood that for a family, unity and harmony were the most important things. All right, husband, did His Majesty really allow this announcement in the morning? How come I've never heard you mention it before? Lisa Schwan sweated slightly and said, His Majesty did say that, but he hasn't officially issued an imperial edict yet. In any case, you don't have to worry. The only reason he released the news now was because he wanted the Tang Foundation to increase its performance by the end of the year. After all, Oli had already agreed to award the title of philanthropist to the person who donated the most money every year. So, what difference did it make whether it started this year or next? The next day, as soon as the morning court session began, there was indeed an official who requested Heir to retract his order. He even said, if not, the country will be in danger. Heir was already prepared. He had Kong Ingda tell the civil and military officials the story of Zi Lu rescuing drowning and Zi Gong redeeming people. Ever since we ascended the throne, we have worked hard every day for fear of repeating the mistakes of the previous dynasty. Although the Great Tang is at peace right now, there are still many people who can't get enough to eat and wear. We are concerned about the suffering of the people, so we set up the Warm Tang Foundation to gather the strength of all the wealthy in the Great Tang to help the poor. However, if we want the people to continue doing good deeds, how can the court not give out some decent benefits? Thus, we set up this rule to award the title of philanthropist to the philanthropist every year. Furthermore, this so-called philanthropist title is just a title. He has no real power and will not receive any special treatment. Why are you all so against it? Since the incident had already happened, there was no way he could push the blame to Lisa Schwann. Before Lier went to court, he had already thought of an excuse to deal with the stubborn scholars. In fact, his excuse was basically the same one that Lisa Schwann had used to persuade him. However, Lee would remember this grudge. As for whether he would find a chance to make things difficult for Lisa Schwann in the future, that person could only pray for the best. Your Majesty is wise. This old subject agrees with Your Majesty's philanthropist reward system. A person that even Lier himself did not expect to stand out and support Lier's philanthropist system. Who else could it be other than Wei Zhang? The Cui family had fallen, and Cui Junchuo was temporarily detained by the Supreme Court. After the new year, Wei Zhang would bring Cui Junchuo to Hunan province to clean up the government and thoroughly investigate the evil deeds that the Cui family had done over the years. This old subject has heard that those who seek for wood must strengthen their roots. Those who desire to flow far must dredge their source. Those who desire for the safety of the country must accumulate virtue. The source is not deep, but the stream is far. The root is not solid, but the tree is long. The virtue is not thick, but the country's safety. Although this subject is foolish, I know that is not right. The emperor is the weight of the divine weapon, the vastness of the region, the height of the sky, and the boundless safety of the land. Do not think of danger in times of peace. Abstain from extravagance and thrift. The virtue is not thick, the affection is not strong, the desire is not strong. The root is cut in order to flourish, the source is blocked, the flow is long. Your Majesty's action is for the people. Although there are flaws, it is beneficial to the country. This old subject believes that Your Majesty's action is very good. You can even increase the quota of philanthropist merchants every year by 2 more. This way, the Warm Tang Foundation will be able to collect donations from all over the world and help the people of the world. In the future, even if there is a natural disaster in the Tang Empire, the imperial court will not have to exhaust the national treasury to help the people. The Warm Tang Foundation will be able to overcome it alone and ensure the safety of the people of the Tang Empire. What Lier did not expect was that the flamethrower Wei who liked to scold people in the past had now turned into a virtuous person. He wrote an essay in front of the court, giving him and the other officials a lesson on how to govern the country by valuing the people's lives. It was so long that Lier could not help but applaud. Good, good, good. Beloved official Wei's words have won my heart. I believe that the emperor is like a boat. The commoners are like water. Water can carry a boat, but can also capsize it. I will always reflect on myself with this sentence. At the same time, I hope that all of you can take this as a warning and be good officials who serve the people wholeheartedly. Ensure the peace of the Tang Empire for generations. Lier slammed the table and stood up. At this moment, the more he looked at Wei Zhang, the more he liked him. He even regretted sending Wei Zhang to the Hunan province next year. That's right. When Wei Zhang was sent to the Hunan province, it was partly for the sake of the public. In terms of fairness and honesty, there were not many people in the imperial court who could be compared to Wei Zhang. The other part was because of Lier's selfishness. He wanted to have a few days of peace. But now, Old was a little regretful. If Wei Zhang, this mirror, left, would he be so complacent that he would make a foolish decision? Left Minister Wei's words are like pearls of wisdom. This old subject is enlightened after hearing them. This old subject also agrees with Your Majesty's reward system for philanthropist merchants. Lier's water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize it, shocked the officials. The civil official number 2, Fang Xianling, immediately stood up and clasped his hands. Seeing this, the civil official number 1, Zhang Sun Wuji, also stood up and said, "This old subject agrees." Since the two of them supported Lier, the rest of the officials could not do anything even if they objected. In the imperial court, there were voices of seconding. Chapter 1122. If Li Zixuan had attended the morning assembly today, he would have screamed, F***CK, because Wei Jing's 1,000-word proverb was basically the original text of the famous 10 Thoughts on Admonishing Emperor Taizong. However, the 10 Thoughts on Admonishing Emperor Taizong was written in the 17th year of Jingguan. It could only be said that as a transmigrator, some things could be changed, but some things could not be changed no matter what. This was fate and also the cycle of the heavens. In the afternoon, Li Zixuan, who was concentrating on his book at home, received an imperial edict from Lier. From next year onwards, the Warm Tang Foundation's quota for charity merchants will be increased to 3. At the end of the imperial edict, there was even a warning for Li Zixuan to not play any more tricks. This made Li Zixuan speechless. He thought to himself, old Li's tolerance is only SOSO. This guy doesn't know that with his actions, any random dynasty or emperor would have died countless times. Young Master, Steward Fu, is here. He's in the front hall. Han Yushi had been at the Warm Tang Foundation for the past 2 days, so only Li Zixuan and the 2 maids were left at home. At this time, Xiaoyi knocked on the door of the study and said to Li Zixuan, "Oh, I'm coming." Li Zixuan replied, then put down his pen and walked out the door. "Young Master, I'm sorry for disturbing you while you're writing." Faubert saw Li Zixuan coming over and quickly stood up with an apologetic expression. Li Zixuan laughed and waved his hand. "Ha! Faubert, what are you saying? Writing a book is not something that can be finished in a day or 2. How is this disturbing? Please take a seat. Shall he boil a pot of tea and bring it over?" "Yes, young master." Shao He answered and left. Now that there was a coal stove and honeycomb briquettes at home, boiling water was just too convenient. "Young master, this old man is here to ask if we should start producing the bicycles from before. After all, the demand for coal stoves and honeycomb briquettes is starting to decrease. We should be able to free up a lot of manpower to produce bicycles." After a while, Xiao He brought 2 cups of tea. Faubert stopped the small talk and got down to business. Li Zixuan was startled. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Since the workshop has enough manpower, we can naturally produce bicycles. But in this season, the people are usually so cold that they don't even want to go out. Will anyone be willing to buy a bicycle?" Faubert smiled and said, "Young master, you don't have to worry about that. Just a few days ago, many of the old masters who came to the workshop to ask for custom-made heaters asked if the workshop sold bicycles. That's why we don't have to worry about selling this bicycle." Li Zixuan nodded and said, "If that's the case, then go ahead and build it. Now that the workshop doesn't lack iron, rubber, or sulfur, it's better to make a batch by the end of the year and let the members of the Chamber of Commerce make a profit." At this time, he remembered that he still had a group of hungry members of the Chamber of Commerce under him. A while ago, the coal stoves and honeycomb briquettes were beneficial to the country and the people. But to the members of the Chamber of Commerce, it was not beneficial. Only bicycles were profitable. But in order to carry out the warm winter operation, well, he let the workshop focus on producing coal stoves. This was considered as sacrificing the interests of the members of the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce. Now is the time to compensate them. "Okay, then I will make the arrangements later. The molds and materials are already made. We should be able to produce a batch before the new year." Faubert nodded. "Faubert, how is Xiao Bing doing over there? That kid should have sent you a message, right?" Li Zixuan smiled and asked. Hearing Li Zixuan mention his nephew, Uncle Fu's face was full of smiles. He replied, "Thank you for your concern, young master. That kid is fine. I heard that he used the money young master gave him to buy a house over there and bought a few acres of land. He said that he plans to let me retire in the future." Li Zixuan could not help but laugh. "From what I see, he wants to settle down there himself." Faubert was a little embarrassed. "I don't think so. He just wants to have a place to stay while helping young master." Li Zixuan shook his head and did not probe further. He asked again, "Then does he have news of my father-in-law?" Ever since Han Lijing went to Hedong Road, he had not sent any messages to Li Zixuan or Han Yushi. Han Yushi was naturally very worried. Li Zixuan was also a little worried. He even sent people to Hedong Road to check for news. But the world was big. If a person fell into a sea of people, how could it be so easy to find him? Faubert stroked his beard and carefully recalled for a moment. He said, I remember Xiao being mentioned in a letter that Han Lijing went to Yinzhou. He did not mention anything else. Li Zixuan's heart sank. After a moment, he nodded and said, I know. That's all for now. Faubert cupped his hands and said goodbye. Li Zixuan sat on the sofa and closed his eyes. Suddenly, he said, Husband, husband, father is back. There was a flurry of footsteps and Han Yushi's surprised cheers at the door. Li Zixuan opened his eyes and saw Han Yushi panting in front of him. Her little face was red from the cold. The breath from her mouth formed clouds of white mist in the air. After a moment of shock, Li Zixuan said, Wifey, are you saying that father-in-law is back? Under normal circumstances, Han Yushi would call Li Zixuan father and Han Tianhu father. Li Zixuan was very sensitive to the key point in Han Yushi's words. Yes, yes, father is back. Han Yushi nodded happily. Li Zixuan heard and hurriedly stood up. He said, Where is he? Let's go and see father-in-law. At the same time, he finally felt relieved. As long as Han Lijing was fine, it was fine. Otherwise, his wife would cry to death. No need, Xiao Xian. I'm here. At this moment, Han Lijing appeared at the door and said, It turned out that Han Yushi had come to Yinshan with him. However, perhaps because Han Yushi was too excited and wanted to tell Li Zixuan the news earlier, she ran faster and arrived first. Li Zixuan looked over and saw Han Lijing standing upright in front of the door. His face was unshaven and looked a little weathered. Although his clothes were a little shabby, they still looked tidy. His back was as straight as usual, but there was more depth in his eyes, making him look a little melancholy. Father-in-law, Li Zixuan went forward and greeted him with a smile. How have you and Yushi been? Han Lijing asked with a smile. Both are good. Both are good. Father-in-law must be tired from the journey. Come in and sit down. Li Zixuan felt that there were many stories behind his father-in-law's smile. He guessed that he had experienced many things on this trip to Hedong Road. Chapter 1123. Father-in-law, I heard that you went to Yinzhou a while ago. Li Zixuan asked after Han Tianhu sat down in the Yinshan residence. Han Lijing replied, Yes, I went to Yinzhou to visit my old brothers. Li Zixuan sensed that something was wrong with Han Lijing's tone, so he asked, Father-in-law, did something happen? Han Lijing smiled bitterly and shook his head. Nothing, nothing. Let's not talk about it. When I came back, I heard that the Cui family had fallen. Is that true? Li Zixuan saw that his father-in-law did not want to talk about Yinzhou, so he did not ask further. He nodded and said, Yes, that's true. Han Lijing sighed with emotion. Then his expression changed. Xiao Xian, tell me honestly, did you secretly add fuel to the fire behind the Cui family's incident? There were less than 10 people in the Tang Empire who knew the real mastermind behind the Cui family's incident. Han Lijing could guess it because he knew that Li Zixuan had a history with the Cui family. Li Zixuan met his father-in-law's aggressive gaze and could only say helplessly, I do have some connections. Han Lijing asked anxiously, Does His Majesty know about this? Li Zixuan smiled bitterly and said, If His Majesty doesn't know, why would I be grounded for 2 months? Han Lijing's face turned pale instantly. He said angrily, Grounded for 2 months? Xiao Xian, you're still not satisfied with being grounded for 2 months? What you've done is taboo. Luckily, His Majesty is benevolent and magnanimous. Otherwise, even if you had 10 heads, it wouldn't be enough to chop them off. Xiao Xian, I hope that you can think twice before you do anything in the future. Don't let your emotions affect your decisions. Now, you don't only represent yourself. Behind you, there's Yushi, your father, mother, and sister, and even the students of the academy. There's more than one solution to many problems. Being rash and impulsive will only lead to endless troubles. Imperial power was greater than the heavens. Little Xian, I've been there before. I know you don't like to be restrained, but since you've left Mount Longhu and entered the secular world, you have to maintain a respectful heart towards imperial power. Otherwise, once His Majesty becomes suspicious of you, everything in the Li family, including the Yanhuang College, will be reduced to nothing. In the past, My father lost his respect for the imperial power and was momentarily blinded by greed. He rebelled with Yang Xingan, and in the end, his family was destroyed. Father-in-law hopes that you can take this as a warning and try not to let your emotions affect your decisions. Han Tianhu's personal experience had instilled in Li Zixuan the concept of imperial power is supreme. After Li Zixuan finished listening to his father-in-law's description, a layer of cold sweat formed on his back. At this moment, he finally understood that he was indeed a little too reckless and selfish back then. He had only considered the temporary satisfaction and comfort he would get by wiping out the Chui family, but he had not considered that his family, and even his students, would be implicated by his actions. Although it was refreshing to see injustice on the road and draw a sword to help, it would be fine if he had no attachments, but he still had a group of old and weak women and children behind him. His father-in-law was right. He had indeed lost his respect and acted too rashly. Father-in-law is right. I will take this as a warning and think thrice before doing anything in the future. Li Zixuan solemnly cupped his hands and said. He was not someone who could not listen to other people's opinions. Han Lijing's eyes were filled with both gratification and complexity. He sighed and said, I hope this incident will not arouse His Majesty's suspicion. Otherwise, little Xian, you will have a hard time in the imperial court in the future. Father-in-law, you don't have to worry. His Majesty has already punished me by grounding me for 2 months. Even if he is suspicious, at most, he will just strip me of my official title. At that time, I will be able to peacefully be a rich man and a teacher. Anyway, it had already happened. Li Zixuan was very open-minded. First, he did not rebel, and second, he did not usurp the throne. At most, Li Zixuan would just strip him of his official title and let him go home to farm. Throughout the entire Jingguan dynasty, except for those who rebelled, no minister had been beheaded because he angered the emperor. In this era, the monarch was quite tolerant of his ministers. It was far from the Qing dynasty, where one's entire family would be killed because of one wrong word. As long as he did not touch that red line, his life would not be in danger. Alas, this is the only way. I just came back. There's still many things to do at home, so I will go back first. Little Xian, take care. Han Tianhu let out a long sigh. He stood up and patted Li Zixuan's shoulder. Then he was about to leave. Li Zixuan felt an inexplicable sense of heaviness. He always felt that after his father-in-law went to Yinzhou, he seemed to have changed a little. He had become more profound. Husband, father may be thinking too much. Don't take it to heart. Han Yushi saw Li Zixuan frowning and sitting on the sofa, lost in thought. She could not help but feel a little distressed. Li Zixuan sighed, took his wife into his arms, and said, Wife, I am sorry. A while ago, I was too impulsive. I only wanted to have a clear mind for a moment, but I neglected you all. I almost implicated the entire Li family into a sea of fire. In the future, I will not. Husband, don't say that. Before Li Zixuan could finish, Han Yushi placed her slender finger in front of Li Zixuan's mouth and said anxiously, Since this concubine is married to my husband, I am naturally willing to share honor and disgrace with my husband. No matter what my husband does, this concubine will support him. No matter what the consequences are, this concubine is willing to bear them with my husband. Looking at the pure eyes and sincere face of the beautiful lady in front of him, Li Zixuan's heart was suddenly greatly touched. He couldn't help but hug Han Yushi tightly in his arms again. He silently patted her back and thought in his heart, Don't worry about me. Wife, I will protect you in this life. I will also protect father, mother, and Lan. Han Lijing's words made Li Zixuan suddenly wake up. He could not be reckless, especially when he was the head of the family. The fate of the whole family was related to him, so he had to be more careful. However, not being rash did not mean that he would remain silent the next time he saw injustice. Han Lijing was right. There were some things that could not be solved by being rash. Although it was domineering and satisfying to take revenge without caring about anything else, the repercussions that came with it were equally huge. Li Zixuan felt that he should be more stable in the future. After all, this was a feudal society. No matter what happened in the future, he had to live day by day. After another 2 days, on the 24th day of the 12th lunar month, the warm winter operation ended. Li Zixuan announced that all the students were on holiday. Those who lived close to him could go home, and those who lived far away could stay in the academy for the new year. During this period, the academy would provide all the students with free food. Such attractive conditions made some of the teachers in the academy who lived close to Yunshan couldn't help but stay. After all, the food in the academy was completely comparable to the restaurants outside. Li Zixuan knew that he could not help but laugh. In addition to free food for the students who stayed for the new year, he also prepared something else. Chapter 1124. As the end of the year approached, the atmosphere in the capital became more and more intense. On the streets of Chang and city, people could be seen purchasing New Year goods everywhere. The price of pork in the eastern and western cities quietly rose. Although it was cheap meat in the eyes of the rich, it was a supreme delicacy to the poor. Furthermore, Zuaishan restaurant had introduced a few new dishes that were related to pork. There were more and more ways to cook pork among the people, but they were not as delicious as Zuaishan restaurants. Even so, the pork dishes among the people were many times more delicious than before. Therefore, no matter if it was rich or poor, they would stock up on pork at home as the end of the year approached. As a result, the demand for pork in Chang and city naturally soared. It was difficult for the price of pork not to rise. However, with the previous example of cloth prices skyrocketing in Chang and city and cloth merchants being arrested, the peddlers did not dare to go overboard. The price of pork was still within a controllable range. In addition to pork, the sales of other goods were also booming, such as cloth, silk, jade Buddha, porcelain, and so on. All kinds of small items for children to play with also filled the streets and alleys. Jianghu merchants also hoped to take advantage of this annual festival to make a fortune. Although Yinshan City was far away from the bustling city, one could still feel the flavor of the new year. Li Gang had 2 sons. The eldest son was called Li Shaoji. He left behind Li Anren, who died a few years ago. The youngest son, Li Lian, had been an official in another city and had returned to Chang 2 days ago. The old man had lived in Yinshan City for a long time and was used to the elegant atmosphere here. He insisted on celebrating the new year here. Li Lian was not by his father's side all year round. Naturally, he had to stay by Li Gang's side to fulfill his filial piety. Therefore, he brought his wife and servants to Yinshan City. The couple had stayed in the Cloud Mountain courtyard for 2 days. They were actually reluctant to go back because the house and furniture in the courtyard were too comfortable to live in. As the end of the year approached, Lilian's wife also began to arrange for the servants to buy New Year's goods. She and Lilian were very respectful to Li Zixuan, the owner of Yinshan. Therefore, when buying New Year's goods, they would often come over to ask Li Zixuan or Han Yushi if they wanted to help bring anything. Sometimes, Han Yushi would go to the Chang and warm Tang Foundation and often use a carriage to give Li Lian's wife a ride. After a few exchanges, the 2 families quickly became familiar with each other, and there was a sense of closeness between them. Recently, Yinlai had been coming to Cloud Mountain more frequently. In a few days, the officials of the imperial court would welcome a rare 7 days of annual leave. Yinlai also planned to bring his family to Cloud Mountain for the new year. As a person grew older, he preferred peace and quiet. Therefore, at Yinshan, the Yin family's residence was also decorated with lanterns and colored banners to welcome the new year. As for Sun Simiao, the old Taoist had always been a loner. He had no concept of celebrating the new year, but he had a good disciple. After failing to invite Sun Simiao to his home for the new year, he asked Hu Hanyin to go to Yinshan Mountain to buy New Year's goods for his master. Of course, Old Hu agreed. Even Lu Yue, who had always been stingy, became generous at this time. She let Hu Hanyin carry the pork and fish bought at home to Yinshan Mountain as if they were free. Hu Jing and Hu Zhen, on the other hand, helped Sun Simiao tidy up the courtyard inside and out after the free medical consultation every day. The two of them claimed that they would definitely go to Yunshan during the new year to celebrate with Sun Simiao. As for the free medical consultation in the surrounding counties, they would definitely have to stop in a few days and could only continue after the new year. Yin Silu returned to Chang and after the holidays. He still had a big family in Chang'an. Wang Ji was unwilling to go to his brother's house, so he stayed in the academy. He bragged to the bearded man all day long and drank some wine. He was quite carefree. Ma Zhou rented a house in Chang and City, so he had somewhere to go. However, he spent more time in the editorial department of Tang Daily recently. Mo Huai and Mo Lingwei went down the mountain and returned to their mansion in Plum Village, which was the house of Lu Shuren and his son. As for the rest of the Mo family, the civilian staff returned to their homes in Plum Village, while the military staff continued to guard the academy. This was because there were many scientific secrets in Yanwang College. If they were stolen by someone with ill intentions, the loss would be huge. In fact, people like Ma Zhou, Wang Ji, Yin Silu, and Mo Huai were very likely to be evaluated as professors in the Academy's teacher title evaluation at the beginning of next year. When that time came, they would naturally obtain a modern residence in Yunshan Mountain that everyone envied. Li Zishuan did not lack money or residences. He lacked talents. If there were 10,000 talents like Ma Zhou and Wang Ji, he would dare to take them all. Wasn't it just a house for each of them? In Li Zishuan's eyes, it was just a small amount of money. However, if he did this in the modern world, he would really be a super rich boss. Even the richest man in the country would not dare to play like this. Fei Ji, go and invite Mr. Li Gang over. Tell him that I've warmed a pot of good wine and invited him to taste it. Li Zishuan saw that the house was decorated with lanterns and colored banners, but he still felt that something was missing. Suddenly, he thought of something and gave the order. Yes, Marquis. Pang Feiji immediately received the order and left. After half an hour, Li Gang's laughter came from outside. You must be lying to me. You said that you've warmed a pot of good wine? Ha! I'm afraid you have something to ask me, right? His voice arrived before his person. Although Li Gang was already over 80 years old, his voice was still full of energy. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man had already arrived at the door. Li Zishuan quickly stood up and greeted him. What are you talking about, old man? Look at this stove. Isn't there a pot of good wine that I've warmed for you? Oh, it really is. Judging from the smell, it doesn't smell like a gentle village, and it doesn't smell like drunken immortal either. Why does it smell like herbs? Li Gang sniffed lightly, and his face was filled with confusion. Li Zishuan laughed and stretched out his hand. This is a medicinal wine recipe that I got from Sun Daozhong last month. Drinking it can strengthen the bones, strengthen the muscles, and nourish the blood. Moreover, the method of making this medicinal wine is quite unique, causing the taste of this medicinal wine to be even more unique. Mr. Li, would you like to try it? He wasn't making this up. The prescription for the medicinal wine was real. Originally, it was meant for his father, but Li Jingma felt that his body was still strong and didn't need to drink it. After drinking it a few times, he didn't drink it. Now, it was a good idea to give it to Li Gang. At his age, the old man's ability to produce blood was insufficient, and his muscles and bones were seriously aging. He needed nourishment like this. Ha! Yamacho, you've praised this medicinal wine as if it's the only thing in the world. How can I not give it a try? Li Gang sat down and smiled while stroking his beard. Suddenly, he changed the topic. Yamacho, why don't you tell me why you're looking for me first? Otherwise, I won't feel comfortable drinking this wine. Li Zishuan's old face, or rather, his small face, immediately stiffened. Chapter 1125. Ahem. Mr. Li's eyes are as sharp as a torch, so I told you the truth. In the Yunshan residence, Li Zishuan coughed awkwardly before telling the truth. I wanted to ask for a few words from Mr. Li, but because I've been grounded at home by His Majesty, it's inconvenient for me to go out, so I had to ask Mr. Li to come over. Li Gang was speechless. Our residences are only a few steps away from each other. Even if you go out, do you think His Majesty will find trouble with you? Besides, there are no outsiders on Yunshan. Who would be so free as to inform his majesty of such a small matter? Li Zhishuan was sweating profusely. Who asked him to be well-meaning by his father-in-law 2 days ago? Naturally, he would be a little more careful when doing things. Ahem, since his majesty wants me to stay at home and reflect, then I must be sincere. Huh. Li Gang shook his head. He obviously didn't believe him, but he was too lazy to investigate further. At this time, he said, in terms of calligraphy, I'm far inferior to Dang Shan, Chu Suiyong, and Bo Shi, Yu Shernan. Why would Yamacho come to me for help? Huh. What I seek is Mr. Li's artistic conception and also Mr. Li's spirit. Mr. Li has noble character and unquestionable integrity. I must hang Mr. Li's calligraphy at home and study it at all times. Li Zhishuan flattered. In fact, this fellow wanted to take Li Gang's calligraphy and leave it as a family heirloom for future generations. Although Li Gang's calligraphy wasn't as famous as Yu Shernan and Chu Suiyong's, Li Gang's fame wasn't any less than those two. Besides, he was now grounded. How could he go out and ask Yu Shernan and Chu Suiyong to write for him? Sending someone to invite them to his residence wasn't realistic either. After all, their friendship wasn't that good yet. Huh. Yamacho, don't flatter me. What do you want me to write? Just tell me. When the time comes, don't complain that my calligraphy is ugly. Li Gang waved his hand and smiled helplessly. Li Zhishuan nodded at Xiaohe. The latter turned around and left. Soon, she returned with 2 rows of red papers in her hands. Li Zhishuan said to Li Gang, it's going to be the new year soon. I want to hang 2 auspicious characters in front of the door to make it seem more festive. It's just that these characters are a little difficult to display, so I asked Mr. Li Gang to come and inscribe them. Li Gang frowned. What are you going to inscribe on Yamacho? I call this a couplet because it's going to be the new year soon. It's also called Spring Festival Couplets. Couplet? Yamacho, tell me about it. It cannot be said that there were no couplets in this era, but there was no such thing as a couplet. In fact, long before the Qin and Han dynasties, people in our country had the custom of hanging peach talismans during the new year. The so-called peach talisman was to write the names of the legendary exorcist gods Shin Cha and Yulei on 2 peach planks and hang them on the left and right doors to exorcise ghosts and suppress evil. This custom lasted for more than 1,000 years. It was only in the 5th generation that people began to inscribe couplets on the peach planks. According to the records of the Song Dynasty and the Shu family, Meng Chong, the ruler of Shu in the 5th generation, every year, scholars were appointed to write poems and inscribe peach talismans on the left and right of the bedroom door. At the end of the year, 964 AD, the scholar Xing Yinshuan wrote poems. Chong used his non-professional skills to write poems and wrote New Year's celebration, festivals Changchun. This was the earliest form of couplets, and it was also the earliest spring festival couplets in our country. After the Song Dynasty, it was quite common for people to hang spring festival couplets during the new year. Wang Engshi's poem, Thousands of Families Always Exchange New Peach Talismans for Old Ones, was a true portrayal of the grand occasion at that time. Because the appearance of spring festival couplets was closely related to peach talismans, the ancients called them peach talismans. Therefore, when Li Gang heard the couplets in spring festival couplets, he was stunned. Li Zhishuan was already prepared, and he said without hesitation, the first part of the couplet is called Smooth Sailing, Happy, Every Year. The second part is called Everything Goes Well, Every Step is High. The horizontal inscription is, Lucky Star Shines High. This couplet wasn't considered literary, but it stood out because it was festive. It was considered one of the more widespread spring festival couplets in modern times. Li Gang heard this and squinted his eyes. After a moment of silence, he nodded and praised, although it doesn't have any novelty, it wins in that the couplet is neat and tidy. Furthermore, these 2 sentences can be considered appropriate for the occasion. But why do I feel that this couplet is similar to the peach talisman? Peach talisman? Li Zhishuan was stunned. Fortunately, he wasn't an ignorant person. After thinking for a while, he finally recalled the peach talisman in an ancient poem. Therefore, he nodded and said, "That's right, that's right. This is also called a peach talisman, but I feel that couplets are more suitable for it than peach talismans." Li Gang shook his head and didn't deny it. The old man placed the red paper on the table. Li Zishuan hurriedly asked Xiao he to grind the ink with the best pine smoke ink. The Tang Dynasty was a period of rapid development of ink production technology. From the Wei and Jin dynasties, the ink balls made of lacquer and pine coal were gradually popularized and finalized in the Tang Dynasty. Various solid ink ingots were made with pine smoke and glue, and the quality was getting better and better. Famous inks such as Zhu Min, Li Yongbing, Shi Chao, Shi Tingue, and other famous inks made by famous artists such as Zhu Min, Li Yongbing, Shi Chao, and Shi Tingue were all tributes to the imperial family. Li Gang held the brush and concentrated. After a series of strokes, 16 large characters suddenly appeared on the paper. Li Zishuan looked at it and realized that Li Gang's handwriting wasn't as bad as the old man said. It was different from Chu Suelian's calligraphy, which was long and flat, and was also different from Yu Shernan's calligraphy, which was dignified and full of spirit. Li Gang's handwriting was as smooth as jade, graceful and elegant. Perhaps his handwriting was just like his character, a gentleman like jade. Good handwriting. Good handwriting. Xiao He quickly sent it to the workshop and let Faubert frame it with high-quality glass. This year, during the new year, we will put this couplet in front of our house and pass it down for generations to come. Li Zishuan clapped his hands and laughed. Speaking of which, even if his future descendants were to be prodigals, with just this couplet, they should be able to live without worries, right? Yes, young master. Xiao He responded. Then, she and Xiao Shi carefully dried the ink on the red paper and brought it to the workshop. Li Gang couldn't help but laugh. He said helplessly, "Yamacho, don't joke around. In terms of calligraphy, I am far inferior to Dangshan and Bashi. I really don't understand why you want me to come and inscribe it." Li Zishuan waved his hand and retorted, "Mister, you are wrong. In terms of calligraphy, there is no such thing as good or bad. At most, each of them has their own merits. In terms of speaking skills, Dangshan and Bashi are no match for you, Yamacho." Li Gang smiled and pointed at Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan was helpless. He wasn't trying to flatter him just now. "Forget it. Let's not talk about that anymore. Mister, please sit down and drink. Now, I can finally relax and drink." Li Gang joked again. Chapter 1126. Feiji, go get these materials for me. After sending off Li Gang, Li Zishuan wrote and drew in the study for a while. Then, he took out a list of materials and ordered Pang Feiji. Pang Feiji did not even look at it. He took it and cupped his fist. "Yes, Marquis." Then he turned and left. Li Zishuan hurriedly called out to him, instructing him with a stern face, "Keep this list safe for this Marquis. If it's lost or seen by others, you won't be able to pay for it, even if you use your life. Do you understand?" Pang Feiji straightened his back and said seriously, "Understood, Marquis. I'll definitely keep it safe." Walking out of the courtyard, he took out the list of materials that Li Zishuan gave him. He was dumbfounded. This. What does Marquis want these things for? Is he keeping them for the new year? Previously, when Li Zishuan asked Li Gang to write couplets, Pang Feiji guessed that Li Zishuan was preparing for the new year even though he was not there. However, what did the things on the list have to do with the new year? Forget it. I don't care anymore. I just need to find these things for Marquis and make sure that no one else sees this list. Pang Feiji could not figure it out no matter how hard he scratched his head. In the end, he could only put the list back carefully and walk down a mountain. After instructing Pang Feiji, Li Zishuan returned to the study and continued writing. In fact, he had already written a portion of the second semester's teaching materials a few months ago. After so many days of seclusion, he was almost done with the second volume of teaching materials. Now, his main job was to proofread. The house was quiet. There were only him and two maids. Han Yushi went to Chang, and in the morning, the rest accompanied Yi Guozhong and old lady Yi to tour the academy. That's right. This group of people had been walking around the academy for a few days, and they were still not tired of it. Lisa Schwann sometimes did not understand. Wasn't it just a bunch of reinforced concrete buildings? Was it that attractive? This guy was just standing there and talking. He didn't even think about it. Yi Guoqiong and old Madam Yi were born and raised in the Tang Dynasty. How could they not feel refreshed when they saw the tall cement building? It was like a modern person seeing an ancient house for the first time. It would be strange if they didn't find it novel. Bang, bang, bang. Marquis, I've already found everything you need. After an unknown amount of time, Pang Feiji knocked on the door. Li Zixuan put down the document in his hand, raised his head, and said, "Come in." With a creak, Pang Feiji came in with a gunny sack. Seeing this, Li Zixuan frowned and said, "You put everything in a sack." Pang Feiji quickly put down the sack and opened it, saying, No. Marquis, look, these are all wrapped in small packets of paper." Li Zixuan nodded in satisfaction. "All right, well done. Go guard the front yard. I'm going to the backyard to do something. Without my orders, no one is allowed to enter the backyard." Pang Feiji nodded and replied, "Yes." Marquis. Then he couldn't help but ask, "Marquis, what are you going to do with these things?" After saying that, Pang Feiji immediately regretted it. In a big family, it was taboo to know too much. Li Zixuan wasn't angry. He raised his eyes and glanced at Pang Feiji. "You'll know when the time comes." "All right, did you destroy the list just now?" Seeing that Li Zixuan didn't blame him, Pang Feiji heaved a sigh of relief. He then replied, "The list is here. I haven't destroyed it yet." Li Zixuan picked up the gunny sack with one hand and walked out of the door. He said calmly, "Remember to burn the list later." Pang Feiji was stunned. He then said, "Yes." However, Li Zixuan was no longer beside him. The latter had already gone to the backyard to do something. "Husband, I'm back." It was close to noon when Han Yushi returned from Chang'an City. Once she entered the house, she habitually shouted inside. However, there was no response from inside. At this time, Xiaohe appeared out of nowhere and said, "Young mistress, young master is doing something in the backyard alone." "Oh, then I'll go take a look." Han Yushi put down the package in her hands, then clapped her hands and walked towards the backyard. Pang Feiji, who was guarding the front yard, obviously heard it. However, he wasn't stupid enough to stop her. Although Li Zixuan had instructed him not to let outsiders into the backyard, Han Yushi was obviously not an outsider. "Wife, you're back." In the backyard, Li Zixuan was using glue to make thick paper cylinders. The diameter of the cylinders was about a little thicker than a thumb, and the cylinders were about 20 centimeters tall. There were materials scattered all over the ground beside him. Li Zixuan, who was fiddling in the yard, heard the sound of footsteps and spoke without turning his head. Judging by the sound, this was the tacit understanding between an old couple. Speaking of glue, many people subconsciously thought that there was no glue in ancient times. In fact, there was glue, but it wasn't the modern chemical glue. The glue Li Zixuan was using now was fish gelatin. As the name implied, it was made from fish bladders. The fish bladders were steamed, boiled, pounded, and filtered before they were finally made into fish gelatin. When it was used, it was heated in water. After it was melted, it would be applied to the surface of the object. After it cooled and dried, it would be successfully adhered. In terms of viscosity, it was much stronger than most modern adhesives. Other than fish gelatin, there was also pig gelatin. It was made from pig skin. After boiling, it became something like glue. When it was used, it was also heated in water. It was used in the same way as fish gelatin. It could be said that the wisdom of the ancient people in terms of tools and materials wasn't as weak as most people thought. Husband, what are you doing?" Han Yushi saw the paper tubes lying on the ground and other materials scattered everywhere. She couldn't help but ask curiously. Li Zixuan thought for a moment and said, "Well, I'm making something similar to firecrackers, but it's not only louder than firecrackers, but also better looking than firecrackers." "Wife, you just came back. Go and rest. I'll be done in a while." That's right. Li Zixuan wanted to make fireworks. At this time, the firecrackers wrapped in gunpowder with paper had not appeared yet. There were only firecrackers or exploding rods. To put it bluntly, this thing was a bamboo rod. Because the bamboo rod was sealed in sections, when it was heated, the gas inside would expand. If it was heated for a long time, the bamboo rod would explode, so it was called a firecracker. Usually, during the new year, naughty children liked to play with this thing the most. They could often see naughty children on the street throwing bamboo rods into the fire in groups of 3 to 5. They mainly wanted to hear the sound. Official firecrackers with gunpowder were only recorded in the Northern Song Dynasty. At that time, they were also called firecrackers. The fireworks that Li Zixuan was making now with the help of gunpowder were definitely not available in the Tang Dynasty. Chapter 11:27. Just after lunch, Lanner impatiently urged him to hurry up. "Brother, set off the firecrackers. Lanner wants to see firecrackers." The little girl was a little tired of accompanying her grandparents around the academy. After all, she had been playing at the academy before, and the novelty had long worn off. Therefore, she came back alone in the afternoon. During lunch, she heard from Han Yushi that Li Zixuan had made a big baby that was similar to firecrackers in the morning. The little girl was instantly excited. If it weren't for Li Zixuan watching her, she probably wouldn't even want to eat and would have gone to play with fireworks. Playing was a child's nature. Whether it was in modern times or ancient times, it was mostly like this. Especially things like fireworks and firecrackers. Children loved to play with them even more. In his previous life, Li Zixuan still played with firecrackers during the New Year, even when he was in high school. "Okay, I'll set them off for you. But Lan, you have to stand a little further away." Li Zixuan patted Lan Er's little head and said dotingly. The main reason he wanted the little girl to stand a little further away was that he wasn't confident in the fireworks he made. After all, he had only played with them in his previous life, but he had never made them. In the morning, he had only used the memory of dismantling a section of fireworks in his previous life to slowly fumble around and create an experimental product. He had no idea whether it could be fired or whether it would explode on the spot. Yes, Lan will definitely stand far away. In order to see Li Zixuan set off firecrackers, Lan was willing to agree to anything. "Okay, you go to the front yard first. I'll go to the backyard to get something," Li Zixuan said as he stood up. Of course, such a dangerous experiment had to be as far away from home as possible. Otherwise, if he were to test the fireworks in the backyard and blow up the house, he would be heartbroken. Yes, Lan responded, then pulled Han Yushi's hand and said, "Sister Yushi, can you go too? Lan is scared alone." Plop. Li Zixuan, who had just walked to the backyard door, almost fell to the ground. "You're scared? If you're scared, you won't cry and shout that you want to play with firecrackers." "Okay, then I'll go with Lan." Han Yushi nodded and agreed. Actually, she really wanted to go. However, when she thought about how she was already married, it would be inappropriate for her to watch these children's games. Now that Lana had invited her, she decided to go with the flow. "Wife Lana, stand back a little more." "Ah, brother, you're already so far away. Why are you still standing back?" Yes, it was still not enough. A little further. In front of the Yinshan villa, Li Zixuan was holding a plate of experimental fireworks. This experimental product was made by connecting 9 fireworks together with a lead wire. The 3x3 arrangement made its chassis very stable. Li Zixuan took a shovel and dug a shallow pit. He buried 1/5 of the firework in the soil to ensure that it wouldn't tilt during the process of being set off. After that, he repeatedly urged Lan, and Han Yushi to retreat. To be honest, Li Zixuan didn't care about the small amount of gunpowder in the fireworks. However, it was a completely different story for his wife and sister. If it exploded on them, they would be scalded at the very least, or even disfigured at the very least. "Brother, this should be enough, right?" Lan shouted at Li Zixuan impatiently with her hands on her hips. She felt that Li Zixuan was making a fuss over nothing. Even if this firecracker was more powerful than the one she used to play with, it shouldn't make them stand so far away. The little girl even doubted that she would be able to hear the firecracker clearly later. Okay, Lon, remember to cover your ears. After visually estimating the distance, Lisa Schwan shouted at his sister. Lon curled her lips and didn't move. Lisa Schwan smiled and thought to himself, little girl, you still don't believe me. You'll regret it later. At that moment, he didn't waste any more time talking nonsense. He stretched the match beside him towards the lead wire of the fireworks. The fuse was made from a small amount of gunpowder wrapped in straw paper, which was extremely easy to ignite. The moment the burning match in Lisa Schwan's hand touched the fuse, a spark immediately appeared and a burst of sizzling sounds could be heard. Under such circumstances, it wasn't the time to act cool. Lisa Schwan saw that the lead wire had been ignited and quickly ran away. Although he was strong in martial arts and wasn't afraid of such a small explosion, he didn't want to embarrass himself for an unnecessary act of acting cool. If that happened, he wouldn't be acting cool, he would be an idiot. Bang! In the quiet sky above the cloud mountain, there was a sudden deafening sound. In this era, there weren't many tall buildings to block the sound, so the loud sound could be heard from afar. After the loud sound, it didn't stop. The next loud sound followed. At this time, Lana was already screaming in fear. The little girl reacted at that moment and quickly covered her ears with her small hands. Then, she glared angrily at Lisa Schwan, as if to say, why didn't you tell me that the firecracker was so loud earlier? Lisa Schwan didn't notice his little sister's angry and resentful gaze. He was looking up at the results of his experiment that he had painstakingly worked on for the entire morning. TSK, the height is okay. It's just that the sound is too loud. I have to reduce the amount of gunpowder. Also, the flame isn't bright enough. Maybe it's because it's daytime now. I can try again at night. Lisa Schwan looked up and whispered softly, brother, this firecracker is amazing. Do you have more? 9 fireworks were released very quickly. It was the first time Lana had seen fireworks that could shoot up into the sky and explode. Although she was scared half to death at the beginning because she was caught off guard, she got used to it and the fear in her heart was immediately replaced by excitement. Hey, Lon, weren't you scared just now? Lisa Schwan said with a smile that wasn't a smile. Lon was embarrassed. Just as she was about to say something, the few of them heard the sound of something breaking through the air not far away. Then, they saw a bearded man and a white-haired old man rushing towards them. It was Mo Zhong and the bearded man. Yamacho, we just heard 9 loud sounds coming from here. What happened? Mo Zhong stopped in front of Lisa Schwan and asked anxiously. Lisa Schwan was stunned for a moment. Then, he said embarrassedly, nothing happened. I was just setting off firecrackers just now. Firecrackers? This time, it was Mo Zhong's turn to be stunned. He was the head of the Mo family. What kind of new things had he not seen before? Why hadn't he seen any firecrackers that were so loud? At this time, the bearded man saw the firework tube that had just been released in the distance. He walked over to take a closer look and said in surprise, this is the firecracker Yamacho was talking about? Why is it made of paper? Wow, what's that? What was that sound just now? It was Chung Chumo holding a football and running over with a group of students. He screamed as he ran. Chapter 1128. Chonyo, Qing Ke, Xiao Ku, Xiao Chong, and Bao Lin. You guys didn't go back to Chong and are playing football in school? To put it nicely, the group of students came whistling like the wind. To put it bluntly, they were like a group of bandits, rushing over like a whirlwind. Lisa Schwan looked at the football in Chang Chimo's arms and the group of students who were all sweating profusely as he asked. The academy was now on holiday, and the students who lived nearby were free to go home. Chung Chumo and his group did not go home to prepare for the new year, but instead, they were loafing around at the academy. It was really unreasonable. Chung Chumo wiped his sweat and said, how can going home be more interesting than staying at the academy? If we stay at the academy, we can still play football with more people. But if we go home, we can only go to the brothel. Ouch. Yamacho, why did you hit me? The first half of Chung Chimo's sentence was the truth. After staying at the academy for half a year, this group of second-generation hedonists in Chang and had basically gotten used to this social life at the academy. Here, everyone did not have to worry about their identity. They could work together and play together. Compared to the days of walking chickens, playing with dogs, and visiting brothels in the past, they undoubtedly preferred their current life. Every day was fulfilling and happy. Lisa Xuan glared at this idiot and said unhappily, "Hit you? See if Uncle Chung will chop you up after I tell him what you just said." Chung Chimo immediately withered. He hurriedly said, What did I say just now? Why don't I remember?" Li Tai and his group all distanced themselves from this idiot, indicating that they did not know him. "Yamacho, what was that noise just now?" Lika looked up and asked seriously. "There, it's that thing under Mr. Zhang San's feet." Li Zishuan pointed at the bearded man not far away and said. The students immediately swarmed over, and Lana also followed curiously. "That's it? Isn't it made of paper? Why'd it make a noise? Huh? Why are there burr marks on it?" Li Tai picked up the finished firework and looked at it from top to bottom. He couldn't help but mutter in disappointment. Exactly. How could a few broken paper tubes make such a loud noise? Yamacho must be lying to us. Chung Chimo also muttered. "My brother didn't lie to you." Just now, Honor had seen it with her own eyes. After her brother ignited this thing, with a bang, something would rush out from it. It would rush into the sky and even explode. "Brother Chinke, the noise you heard just now came from here." As one of the parties involved, Lar crossed her arms and explained to the group of mortals in front of her with a look of superiority. When Li Tai heard this, his eyes lit up. He asked excitedly, "Little sister Lana, is what you said true? Did something really rush out of here and explode?" Lana nodded and said crisply, "Of course it's true. When this thing explodes in the sky, you can still see the flames." When Chung Chimo heard this, his saliva almost flowed out. He said covetously, "F***CK? Doesn't that mean that if I have this thing, I can blow up whoever I want in the future?" Smack. Oomph. Chung Chimo, you're too bad, aren't you? How can you use this thing to blow people up? The bearded man standing next to Chung Chimo slapped Chung Chimo without hesitation. He was also a teacher of the academy, so of course, he had the right to teach Chung Chimo a lesson. Ouch! Chung Chimo cried out in pain, seeing that the person who hit him was a great expert. How could he dare to be rash? He quickly explained, "Haha, Mr. Zhang-san, I was just joking. Don't take it seriously, don't take it seriously." Li Tai ignored the two of them. The little fatty carried the firework tube to Li Zishuan and said, "Yamacho, do you still have this thing? Can you give it to us to broaden our horizons?" "That's right. Yamacho, can you broaden our horizons too?" Zhang Sun Chong also jeered. Li Zishuan said helplessly, "Don't think too much. There's no more. The ones I made in the morning have been finished." Li Tai immediately became anxious. He quickly said, "If you're done playing, why don't you do it again? Yamacho, are you short of manpower? We can all help." Yes, we can all help," the rest of the students immediately said in unison. At the end of the day, they were still a group of brats. How could they resist the temptation of fireworks? Li Zishuan thought for a moment, then nodded and said, "Okay, all of you come. Mr. Imo, Mr. Zhang-san, do you want to come together?" Me too. Yamacho. Hey, Xiaoxian, there's still me. Brother Xiaoxian, Honorin also wants to see you make fireworks. Wang Ji, as well as Li Zishuan's neighbors, Yin Xiaoning and Lianren, had all come. Okay. All of you come." Li Zishuan waved his hand, then turned around and walked towards the courtyard. After a short while, a group of people started to make fireworks in the front yard. Of course, it was under Li Zishuan's guidance. Li Zishuan was actually not worried that these people would learn how to make fireworks. This was because the two gunpowder formulas used in fireworks were in his hands. "Yamacho, that's it? This thing can fly to the sky and explode?" Li Tai made 2 individual fireworks and asked Li Zishuan in disbelief. Li Zishuan glanced and said with a nod, "And that's right. Chinke, If you don't believe me, why don't you try lighting it? Hee hee, that's great. Li Tai had the same idea. He laughed and quickly took his two creations and walked away. Following Li Zishuan's instructions, he fixed the fireworks and lit the fuse with his trembling hands. Then, he quickly retreated. Bang bang. The two loud noises almost shattered everyone's ears. Li Tai's legs were trembling. He was scared and excited at the same time. F***CK. That's awesome. Chinke. Ching Chumo gave Li Tai a thumbs up. Then, he ran to Li Tai with his creations and asked, Chinke, help me take a look. Is this okay? Li Tai roughly looked and said, It should be okay. Hee hee. Okay. I'm going to set off the firecrackers too. Ching Chumo smiled proudly. He hugged the two fireworks and walked towards the place where Li Tai had buried the bomb. Ha! Get ready to cover your ears. I'm going to set it off. Ching Chumo laughed heartily as he turned his head and said to the crowd. The students stopped what they were doing and covered their ears. Only then did Ching Chumo turn around, but when he saw who it was, he turned pale with fright. Holy shit! How'd it light up? Run! It turned out that when he turned around to talk to the students, the fire in his hand accidentally touched the fuse. At that moment, he couldn't care less about anything else. He scampered off, but as luck would have it, when he was running, he brought along the soil next to his feet. The smoking firework fell just like that, and the direction it fell was exactly where the bearded man was. Swoosh! It was too late to say. The moment the firework fell, a bullet shot towards the bearded man. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of the bearded man. Ching Chumo, who hadn't run far, heard the sound of something breaking through the air. Bang! The bearded man's face was solemn. He shouted and gathered all the inner energy in his body to condense a force field in front of him. The bullet stopped 3 inches in front of him and couldn't go any further. Just when the bearded man heaved a sigh of relief, the bullet exploded with a bang, and the bearded man. Chapter 1129. Bang! The gunpowder inside the pellet that was flying towards the bearded man suddenly exploded. Instantly, heat waves surged and sparks flew in all directions. Even though the bearded man had condensed all of his internal energy, it was still difficult for him to defend against this sudden explosion of firepower. Pooh! Ha ha! After the smoke and fire dispersed, the bearded man, who had been bombarded by gunpowder, finally revealed his true appearance. His old face was as black as the bottom of a pot. His originally neat hair was now mostly standing up, and there were many holes in his clothes. His originally dignified image of an academy teacher had instantly turned into an old beggar wandering the streets. No, his shammade appearance was even more miserable than a beggar's. At this moment, the bearded man opened his mouth. What was amazing was that there were actually a few wisps of green smoke coming out from his mouth. Seeing the scene, Li Zishuan could no longer hold it in and laughed out loud. Hee hee, Mr. Zhongsan's appearance is so ugly. Lan covered her small mouth and giggled. The others present were already having a hard time holding it in, seeing the brother and sister laughing first. How could they hold it in any longer? Instantly, they roared with laughter. Many people laughed until tears came out of their eyes. However, there were 2 people who were exceptions. One was the bearded man. This old fellow was originally not a kind person. In this world, there was almost no one who dared to humiliate him. If he had not stayed in the academy for so long and restrained some of his wild nature, the scene would probably have turned red. The other person was Ching Chumo. After this fellow felt the bearded man's gaze that wanted to eat him, he was so scared that he almost peed his pants. How could he still laugh? Cough, cough. That? I have something to do at home. I'll take my leave first. I'll take my leave first. In the midst of everyone's laughter, Ching Chumo coughed dryly and slipped away as he spoke. Of the 36 stratagems, escape was the best stratagem. He did not want to bear the anger of the bearded man. He felt that, with his small body, he would not be able to bear it at all. Everyone was stunned. The bearded man roared and chased after him. Bastard brat, where do you think you're going? Even if your father comes today, I will beat you up so badly that even your mother won't be able to recognize you." Hearing this, Cheng Chumo's heart was filled with shock. He hurriedly circulated 120% of his internal energy and ran as fast as he could. He felt that in all these years, he had never run as fast as he did today. However, he was only a trash who had just broken through to the Chi transformation realm not long ago. How could he be faster than the bearded guest, a peerless expert at the peak of the Grandmaster realm? After running roughly 20 to 30 zhong, the bearded guest flashed. Everyone only saw a blur in front of their eyes, and the bearded guest had already flashed behind Cheng Chumo. Following that was the scene of an eagle carrying a chick. The bearded guest's face darkened as he carried Cheng Chumo back. Bang! How dare you point a firecracker at someone? I didn't mean it. Bang! Who told you to play with firecrackers? Roar! I won't do it again. Bang! I'll let you run. Are you trying to run again? Stop running. Stop running. Mr. Zhang-san, stop hitting him. Bang! Run. Keep running. Xiaoxian Yamacho, help. Someone's going to die. For a moment, smoke and dust filled the air, mixed with the bearded guests cursing and begging for mercy. Everyone covered their faces, unable to bear to see someone being beaten up miserably. After a long time, the dust settled. The bearded man clapped his hands and swaggered off. When he left, he also took away the other firework that Cheng Chumo had not yet had the time to set off. Cheng Chumo was lying on the ground with a bloody nose and a swollen face, panting heavily. How could he have the time to care about this? At this moment, he was only praying that the bearded guest would leave quickly. All right, stop pretending to be dead. Mr. Zhang, San has already left. After a while, Cheng Chumo did not hear any movement for a long time. Just as he was about to get up to investigate, he felt someone kick him beside him. Then, he heard Li Zixuan's voice. Huh, gone? He's finally gone. Ouch. Xiaoxian, help me up. My waist is about to break. This idiot was still complaining that Li Zixuan did not save him earlier. He did not even call him Yamacho and directly called him Xiaoxian. Li Zixuan was not in the mood to bicker with this idiot. He went forward and pulled Cheng Chumo, smiled, and joked, Cheng Chumo, you've got guts. You did something that we didn't dare to do today. How was it? Did you feel good blasting Mr. Zhang-san with firecrackers? Ha ha! Everyone burst into laughter when they heard that. Cheng Chumo spat out a mouthful of bloody saliva with a black face. The bearded guest had just attacked in anger. Although he did not have the intention to kill, his punches still hit him hard. Bah, you guys are too King mean. None of you came to help me when I was being beaten up. Chonyo, it's not that we don't want to help you. We just don't want to help you get beaten up. Lika said humorously. Ha! Everyone laughed again. Cheng Chumo realized that he could not stay here any longer. The smiles of the people here were full of malice. CK. I'm going back to the dormitory to change my clothes. What a bunch of heartless friends. Cheng Chumo complained. When he passed by the place where they made the fireworks, he bent down and picked up the 2 fireworks made by Sun Zifen, then ran away. CK. Cheng Chumo, you be starred. You stole my firecrackers. Put them down. Sun Zifen was shocked and angry. This idiot was obviously unwilling to let Cheng Chumo steal the fireworks that he worked so hard to make. Hence, he quickly chased after him. However, it was hard to say if he could catch up. When he returned to the dormitory, Cheng Chumo could only take a cold shower in the dormitory because the academy's bathhouse was not open yet. He washed the dust and blood off his face and changed into a new set of clothes. He looked no different from before he was beaten up. After everything was done, he took the 2 fireworks and left the dormitory, ready to go home. It was almost New Year's Eve. Even if he did not want to go home, he still had to go home. His mother had already sent people to Yunshan to urge him to go home several times. However, when he walked out of the dormitory area, he unfortunately met someone that he did not want to see. Mr. Zhang-san? What do you want? You've already beaten him up. It's time to put an end to this matter, right? Besides, I didn't do it on purpose. The Fengchun 3 heroes shouldn't be so petty, right? Cheng Chumo said with a strong front. In reality, he was panicking inside. He was afraid that the bearded man would beat him up again. "Hey, kid, why don't you go back with your injuries and ask your father to take revenge on me?" The bearded man did not have the intention to beat him up. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and said in a rough voice. Chapter 11:30. Oof. If you can't fight, what's the point of going home and calling for your parents? Mr. Zhang-san, although I can't beat you now, the river flows east for 30 years and the river flows west for 30 years. 30 years later, oh no, just 10 years. 10 years later, I will definitely be able to beat you. At that time, I will take revenge for today. Within the Yanwang Academy, Chung Chumo held his head high and puffed out his chest as he looked at the bearded man with a haughty expression. During the Warring States period, Qin and Wei fought over Hanoi. Wuqi helped Wei to take over Hanoi. 30 years later, Baiqi helped Qin to take back Hanoi. Folk songs spread everywhere. The river flows east for 30 years, and the river flows west for 30 years. Wuqi and Baiqi rise. The heavens make a mystery. So, this saying was not invented by Do. Actually, this fellow knew his own situation. Even if his father Chung Yao Jin was willing to come to Yinshan to take revenge for him, he would definitely not be a match for the bearded guest. Moreover, the bearded guest had Li Jing and Hong Funa backing him up. If they really fought, the Chung family might not be able to survive. Moreover, after Chung Yao Jin found out about his actions, he would only scold him with "serves you right." He would not come to Yinshan to vent his anger on the bearded guest. Okay? When it came to his father's nature, Chung Chumo was quite sure of it. Not bad. Good ambition. People who practice martial arts should not be afraid of losing and not admit defeat. I admire you very much. Next semester, you will follow me for special training. Maybe 10 years later, you will really have the strength to fight me. Kid, what's with your expression? The bearded guest looked at Chung Chumo with admiration. However, he immediately realized that the latter's expression was not right. That expression was as if he had eaten shit. No, nothing. I'm flattered. Yes, I'm flattered. To be able to receive guidance from Mr. Zhang-san is this junior's honor. Chung Chumo quickly changed his expression and said flatteringly. The bearded guest nodded with satisfaction. He smiled and said, "That's more like it. You may leave now." Chung Chumo felt as if he had been pardoned. He cupped his fists and immediately slipped away. The fat beating from an hour ago did not affect this guy's speed at all. F***CK. Why am I so F***king unlucky today? For no reason at all, a great expert insisted on exchanging pointers with me, and for some inexplicable reason, I was taken in as half a disciple by that guy. I don't want to be forced to learn martial arts from that bearded man. It's over. Damn it, there's no way I can pass the next semester. Sigh. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have acted tough earlier. After descending the cloud mountain, Chung Chumo rode on his horse and ran wildly while cursing to himself. Actually, this guy did not know how lucky he was. In this world, he was the first person who dared to use a firecracker to blast the bearded guest alive and kicking. If it was another person in another situation, that person's life would probably be gone. But now, he was only beaten up by the bearded guest, without pain or itch. In addition, the bearded guest's martial art cultivation was definitely one of the top 5 in the world today. It was even possible that it was one of the top 3 existences. Who knew how many martial artists in the Jianghu yearned to receive his guidance? But Chung Chumo did not know how lucky he was. If this news were spread, he would probably drown in the spittle of others. Chumo, you're finally back. Is the Cloud Mountain so good that you don't even want to return home? When Chung Chumo returned home, his mother immediately went up to him. She was both happy and complaining. "Mother, your son has been revising at the academy recently." Chung Chumo, this guy, was good at lying. In order to prevent his mother from nagging, he did not even care about his integrity. Bullshit. Where did the wound on your face come from? How could Chung Yao Jin not know what kind of character his son had? He scolded him in a bad mood. Then, he swept a glance at Chung Chumo's face and asked immediately. Chung Chumo was stunned. He did not expect that his father would still see through him, even though he had cleaned it up so neatly. At this moment, his mind was spinning rapidly as he frantically thought of an excuse in his head. Then, he heard Chung Yaojin say, "You little brat, stop making up lies to deceive your father. Quickly tell me, did you fight with someone, and you didn't win? You're really embarrassing your father." No one knew his son better than his father. Chung Yaojin made a wild guess and guessed pretty close to the mark. Chung Chumo's face suddenly became a little flustered. "No, I didn't fight, father. This is because I was accidentally hit by a ball when I was playing football with someone yesterday." "Bullshit. What kind of wound is on your face? How can I not see it? If you don't tell me the truth, do you believe that I won't beat you up?" Chung Yaojin angrily said with a face of disbelief. Seeing this, Chung Chumo immediately became terrified. He quickly said the truth. "Father, don't. I'll say it, okay? This wound is..." At this time, Chung Chumo could not care about anything else. He could only briefly explain what happened in the afternoon to Chung Yaojin. Firecracker? What kind of firecracker can injure Zhang Zhongjian? Chung Yaojin was shocked when he heard it. He was not shocked that Chung Chumo was beaten up, but that a small firecracker could actually injure a peerless expert like the bearded guest. When Chung Chumo heard it, he felt even more hurt. Although he did not expect his father to help him vent his anger, but he should at least show some concern, right? "Father, this firecracker is not an ordinary firecracker. It is a new toy that little Xin made. It can fly into the sky and explode. Actually, Mr. Zhang San did not suffer any injuries. His face was only blackened by the explosion and his clothes were torn. That's still very powerful. Do you still have that firecracker? Let me see it." Chung Yaojin was very interested in the thing that could injure the bearded guest. His eyes lit up as he looked at his son and asked, "No more. It's finished." Chung Chumo quickly shook his head and could not help but tighten his sleeves. Chung Yaojin narrowed his eyes and snorted. "In? Really no more?" His tone carried a hint of danger. Knowing that his father was an old hooligan, Chung Chumo clenched his teeth and quickly took out a firework from his sleeve. He handed it over and said, "Father, I only made 2 in the afternoon. One was placed in the academy. There's only 1 left." Rather than being searched by the old hooligan, he might as well take the initiative to hand over one. This way he could still keep one. "Hey, how do you play with this thing?" Chung Yaojin took the firework and laughed. Chung Chumo pretended to be depressed and replied, "Father, if you light the string below, this paper tube will shoot out a small ball that will explode." Understood. Men, quickly bring a match." A moment later, Chung Chumo's horrified roar came from the Chung residence's courtyard. F*CK. "Father, you can't hold this thing in your hand." Immediately after, there was a deafening explosion. Bang! Bah! Unfilial son, stop right there. Chapter 1131. Chung Yaojin beat his son when he had nothing to do at home. Li Zixuan was thinking about how to improve the fireworks on Yunshan Mountain. After dusk, the sky gradually darkened. Under Lan Er's instigation, Li Zixuan set off another plate of fireworks. With the dark night sky as the background, the fireworks shot into the sky and emitted extremely bright flames. Lan was extremely excited. Her small hands were red from clapping. Li Zixuan, on the other hand, was somewhat dissatisfied. This was because although these fireworks were indeed very novel to the ancient people, to a modern person like him, the color was somewhat monotonous. Modern fireworks were not only colorful, but also varied in forms. When they bloomed in the night sky, they would always dazzle people. Li Zixuan's first-generation fireworks, to put it bluntly, were just a few enhanced versions of sky rocket cannons. Bang, bang, bang. Oh, a burst of fireworks and explosions came from the west side of the academy, as well as the cheers of the students. The students who came to make fireworks in the afternoon must have contributed the fireworks tonight. He just hoped that Mo Zhong and the others would step up their patrols at night and not be lazy. Otherwise, It would be bad if the fireworks cause a fire. Husband, what's wrong? Are you not satisfied with the firecrackers? Han Yushi asked tentatively when she saw that Li Zexuan's expression was not right. What she didn't expect was that this random guess was right. Yes, I'm not satisfied. Li Zexuan replied dispiritedly. Han Yushi was dumbfounded and said, Husband, this firecracker is already very powerful. And I have never seen firecrackers that can fly so high and so loudly. What else are you not satisfied with, husband? Lan eyes lit up. Children could be very greedy sometimes, especially when it came to fun. Brother, is there something more fun to this firecracker? Li Zexuan chuckled and rubbed Lan's little head. Of course there's something more fun. Actually, my brother calls this thing fireworks. According to my original idea, after it explodes in the sky, it should look like a flower and not just a ball of yellow light like now. Wow, this is fun. This is fun. Brother, can you make a real firework for Lan to play with? Lan cried out excitedly when she heard that. Han Yushi's face was full of disbelief. She tugged at Li Zexuan's sleeve and murmured, Husband, is there really such a magical thing in this world? Li Zexuan said with a smile, Of course. I'll make one tomorrow. It's just a matter of adding a few more ingredients. It's not difficult at all. Theoretically speaking, it was not difficult to obtain the kind of fireworks he had just mentioned. That firecracker was just filled with black powder. How could it hurt someone? How strange. Around midnight, in the teacher's dormitory of Yanhuang College, the bearded guest room was still lit. The bearded man sat upright on the stool with his arms crossed in front of his chest. He stared unblinkingly at the small pile of black powder placed on the desk in front of him in a daze. In the end, he muttered with a puzzled sigh. The scene in the afternoon certainly made him angry. However, after his anger dissipated and he calmed down, a layer of cold sweat suddenly appeared on his back. He was afraid. He had been apprenticed to a master since he was young and had practiced martial arts for decades. That was how he had achieved his current achievements. He was one of the top 5 martial arts masters in the world. In his life, if he wasn't pursuing freedom, then he was pursuing power. However, the thing he had pursued his whole life was almost broken because of a small toy. How could he not be shocked and afraid? If this continued, wouldn't it mean that in the future, even a martial arts master who had practiced martial arts for decades would not be a match for a firecracker child? Wouldn't that be the biggest joke in the world? If that was the case, then what was the point of martial arts practitioners like them practicing martial arts regardless of the winter and summer? Others might not believe it, but that was the truth. A small firework, a small accident, actually made the infamous bearded guest fall into a daze and fall into a demonic trance. Let's ask Yamacho tomorrow. He's also a martial artist. He sat like this until midnight, but the bearded guest still did not walk out of his demonic trance. He finally gave up thinking about it. Feiji, go to the workshop and get me some more things. The next morning, Li Zexuan had breakfast and ordered Pang Feiji. Yes, Marquis, Pang Feiji responded, then smiled and said, Marquis still wants to make firecrackers. Obviously, when the fireworks were set off yesterday, this guy was also watching from the side. At that time, he was still surprised. He did not understand how the few materials he brought back yesterday could explode after being fiddled with by Li Zexuan. Li Zexuan glanced at him and said unhappily, You're smart. If you don't keep your mouth shut, see if I don't teach you a lesson later. It could be said that in today's world, other than Li Zexuan, Pang Feiji was the one who knew the method of making fireworks the best. If it was not out of trust, Li Zexuan would never have handed the fireworks gunpowder formula to Pang Feiji. Pang Feiji clasped his fist and said, Hee. Marquis, don't worry. My mouth is very tight. Even if you use a metal rod to pry it open, you won't be able to pry it open. Pang Feiji obviously understood that Li Zexuan was willing to give him this kind of task, so he was very excited. Go quickly. What are you talking about? Hee. I'll go now. Pang Feiji took the new formula and hurriedly left. Yo, good morning, Mr. Zhang-san. Just as he stepped out of the door, Pang Feiji almost bumped into the curly-bearded guest who was striding towards him. He hurriedly greeted him politely. There was no other reason. The curly-bearded guest's experience and seniority were there, so he had no choice but to respect him. Moreover, during the military training, the curly-bearded guest had taught him martial arts, which made him even more grateful. Is Yamacho in? The curly-bearded guest frowned and asked straightforwardly. Marquis is inside. Pang Feiji clasped his fist and answered. The curly-bearded guest nodded and did not say anything else. He lifted his leg and walked into the courtyard. Strange, Mr. Zhangsan's complexion doesn't look right. Could it be that he suffered internal injuries from yesterday's explosion? Oh my God, isn't the power of the firecrackers too strong? Pang Feiji walked for a while and could not help but mumble to himself. Let's not think about it anymore. I should hurry up and finish the task that Marquis gave me. I just don't know if the firecrackers made by Marquis' new formula will be even more powerful. Pang Feiji shook his head and mumbled to himself. He then walked down the mountain. Chapter 1132. Yamacho, this firecracker is so powerful when it explodes. Have you ever thought of using it against your enemies? Yinshan Villa. Li Zixuan had just sent off Pang Feiji when the bearded guest arrived. The moment the bearded guest sat down, he asked such a strange question. Li Zixuan's heart moved. He raised his head to look at the bearded guest and asked, Mr. Zhang-san, why would you have such an idea? Yesterday, Cheng Chumo used that firecracker and almost injured me. Last night, I thought of a problem. If Yamacho's firecracker was even more powerful, wouldn't it be able to threaten some of the Jianghu experts? The bearded guest was silent for a moment before he said expressionlessly. Li Zixuan did not expect the bearded guest to think in this direction. Wasn't the firecracker he was talking about equivalent to modern firearms? It's like this. In fact, as far as I know, there's a weapon that works in a similar way to firecrackers. It has something similar to a hidden weapon hidden in it, and this hidden weapon can be propelled by a material. Its speed is not inferior to that of an ordinary grandmaster. This weapon has very low requirements for the user. Ordinary people who have never practiced martial arts can easily use it. I call this weapon a firearm. Actually, the firearm he was talking about was a gun. China was the first to invent gunpowder. However, it was initially used to make firecrackers. Foreigners were inspired by gunpowder and made guns. Li Zixuan felt that when he led Tang Dynasty's industry to a certain level, guns and cannons would definitely be made. The bearded guest was even more shocked. He did not suspect that Li Zixuan was lying or exaggerating. Previously, when he saw the detailed sea map, it already proved that Li Zixuan had some kind of ability to know everything. Therefore, when he heard Li Zixuan describe a firearm, his first reaction was not suspicion, but shock. If the firearm Li Zixuan said really existed, then the matter would be more serious than what he was worried about last night. Firearm? Yamacho. In this firearm, does it also use the black powder from firecrackers? That's right, but I call that powder gunpowder. Different uses would lead to different formulas for gunpowder. Correspondingly, the power of gunpowder would also be different. The gunpowder in the firecrackers is the least powerful type of gunpowder. Li Zixuan said indifferently. He understood that because the bearded man was highly skilled in martial arts, it was inevitable that he would be somewhat arrogant. Now that he had instilled a bit of knowledge on firearms into this bearded man, perhaps it would give birth to a trace of reverence in his heart. The least powerful one. The bearded man's pupils constricted. At this moment, he felt that he was like a frog at the bottom of a well. Right? A few months ago, the Serpent Spirit Mountain was destroyed overnight. Yamacho, did you use those so-called firearms? Having been in Chang, and for so long, the bearded man had already investigated everything about Li Zixuan, so it was not surprising that he knew about the Snake Spirit Mountain. The corner of Li Zixuan's mouth twitched. Was he shooting himself in the foot? Originally, he wanted to open the eyes of the bearded man and make him feel some reverence. He did not expect the bearded man to hit the nail on the head and guess the real reason for the destruction of the Serpent Spirit Mountain. The inside story was top secret at the moment. Only he and Lier knew about it. More or less. Li Zishuan gloomily gave an ambiguous answer. The bearded man sucked in a breath of cold air. He was really frightened by the power of the firearms described by Li Zishuan. A powerful Jianghu sect was actually annihilated just like that. In the face of firearms, a person's bravery seemed so weak at this moment. Sigh. Doesn't that mean that all the hard work we put into practicing martial arts in the winter and summer is all in vain? In the end, we can't even compare to an ordinary person with a firearm? The bearded man suddenly let out a long sigh, and his aura became much more depressed. Li Zishuan was stunned. Only then did he understand the true purpose of the bearded man's visit today. It turned out that this bearded man was almost hurt by the fireworks yesterday, causing his martial arts heart to suffer a blow. Ha! Mr. Zhang San's words are wrong. Li Zishuan pondered for a while, then smiled and said, "Firstly, practicing martial arts is not for the sake of fighting with others. Mr. Zhang San's martial arts understanding shouldn't be so shallow for you to have such great strength today. Secondly, practicing martial arts can strengthen one's body and even prolong one's life. A person's life is short. What could be more important than living for another 2 years? Thirdly, although firearms are powerful, normal firearms will not be able to hurt a martial arts expert at your level. Furthermore, if both parties have firearms, a martial arts expert will definitely be much better at using firearms than an ordinary person. Furthermore, when faced with firearms, a martial arts expert will obviously have a higher chance of survival compared to an ordinary person. Fourthly, if Tang Dynasty can really create firearms in the future, it will only be in the hands of the imperial court. The commoners will definitely not have them. Martial arts practitioners who abide by the law will not have to worry about the threat of firearms. Therefore, in conclusion, martial arts practitioners will have an advantage whether or not firearms exist in this world. Mr. Zhang San, there is no need for you to doubt martial arts. The bearded man seemed to have understood something. After a moment of silence, he stood up and clasped his fists. Looks like I'm wrong. I'm a few decades old, but I can't see through things as clearly as Yamacho. I'm ashamed. Since that's the case, I won't disturb you any further. Goodbye. After saying that, he turned around and walked out of the door. Li Zishuan shook his head helplessly. What the bearded guest did today actually made him feel quite refreshed. A peerless expert could actually see the threat from the firecrackers. This kind of unique eyesight, there was no one else like him. When it was close to noon, Pang Feiji returned with a few bags of materials. Li Zishuan inspected them, then went straight to the backyard to do his experiments. He wanted to create real fireworks of different colors and shapes. In order to achieve this goal, he had to add something to the fireworks. In fact, every modern firework was made up of a pod, and each pod could be called a star. These stars had a diameter of about 1 to 1, 5 inches, 3 to 4 centimeters. In a firework explosion, the atoms of each star would absorb energy, and when they lost the excess energy, they would produce light. Different chemical substances would release different amounts of energy, thus producing different colors of light. For example, when sodium nitrate was heated, the electrons in the sodium atoms would absorb energy and become excited. When the electrons transition from a high energy level to a low energy level, they would release about 200 kilojoules per mole of energy, which was the energy of yellow light. This was known as the flame reaction in chemistry. When different metals were burned, the light they emitted was different. For example, calcium's flame reaction was the red color of bricks. Copper's flame reaction was blue, and potassium's flame reaction was purple. There were also many other metal elements that had their own unique colors. Now that he knew the color of the flame, he could understand how the colorful fireworks were made. In fact, different metal elements were put into the fireworks according to different proportions. After the fireworks were ignited, they would produce different flame reactions in the sky and emit different colors of light. As for how to control the flame shape of the fireworks when they exploded in the sky, the person who made the fireworks had to arrange the positions of the metal elements according to a certain order. Chapter 1133. There were many raw materials for modern fireworks, and the raw materials for different colors of fireworks were different. Generally speaking, the raw materials were KNO3, potassium nitrate, KClO3, potassium chlorate, C, carbon powder, S, sulfur powder, senior, NO3, 2, strontium nitrate, and so on. Some of these raw materials were easy to get, and so were difficult to get at the moment. Li Zhishuan could only try his best to get what he could now. For example, potassium salt. It was definitely unrealistic to ask someone to find a potassium salt mine, but it was possible to get potassium salt from some of the things around him. For example, there was some in the ashes of plants. Because the ashes of plants were the ashes after burning, it contained almost all the mineral elements contained in plants. The most abundant element was potassium, which generally contained 6 to 12% potassium, and more than 90% of it was in the form of carbonate. The next was phosphorus, which generally contained 5 to 3%. It also contained calcium, magnesium, silicon, sulfur, iron, manganese, copper, zinc, boron, molybdenum, and other trace elements. Just like that, Li Zhishuan exhausted his brain power and used all the available raw materials around him, and finally made the first batch of fireworks with multiple colors. Brother, is it done? Can this thing really be as beautiful as a flower? Lan'er saw Li Zhishuan get up and quickly came over to ask. This girl had been circling around Li Zhishuan since morning. One moment she asked this, the next moment she asked that, making Li Zhishuan's head hurt from all the noise. In the end, Li Zhishuan told the little girl that if she continued to be noisy, he wouldn't be able to make today's fireworks. Only then did Lan'er quiet down. At this moment, seeing that Li Zhishuan was obviously going to call it a day, how could she bear it after holding it in for so long? She immediately ran to Li Zhishuan to find out what was going on. Hee, of course. Li Zhishuan clapped his hands and said confidently. Lan'er said excitedly, then brother, let's see. Li Zhishuan said unhappily, Lan'er, it's still daytime now. Even if I let it go, you won't see anything. I'll let it go at night. Do we still have to wait until nighttime? Lan'er's face, which was still very bright and beautiful just now, instantly turned gloomy. The little girl's face really changed at will. Lan'er, don't worry. The sky will turn dark in about 2 hours. It won't take long. Han Yushi walked over and laughed softly. All right then, Sister Yushi, what are we eating tonight? At night, Li Zhishuan smiled. This little girl was quite close to Han Yushi now. She was almost obedient to her. Others were like repelling each other, but the two of them were like attracting each other. Shaking his head, Li Zhishuan decided to enter the house and head to the hot spring room in the courtyard to soak in the hot spring and rest. Speaking of which, when he dug out the hot spring in this courtyard, he had people surround the hot spring and build a house directly on the hot spring. It was specially used to soak in the hot spring during winter. Now that he was grounded at home, it was a good time to enjoy it. However, after building the hot spring room in the backyard, the space was a little tight. Li Zhishuan planned to expand this courtyard after the new year. At the very least, he wanted to transform it into a large villa courtyard. This way, even if the whole family moved in, it wouldn't be crowded. Sigh. Lan'er, this little girl, is really a little light bulb. Li Zhishuan thought unhappily as he soaked in the hot spring alone. Speaking of which, if this little girl wasn't here, wouldn't he and Han Yushi be soaking in a mandarin duck bath right now? Lan'er, who was outside, didn't feel the slightest bit of resentment from her brother. The little girl had been waiting for a long time and finally waited until the sky turned dark. Tonight's dinner was also started an hour earlier. Therefore, as soon as they finished eating, Lan'er pestered Li Zhishuan to set off fireworks. Li Zhishuan didn't refuse this time. He carried a large plate of 64 fireworks and walked toward the open area in front of the courtyard. Li Jingma, Madame Li, and the 3 members of the Yi family were all having dinner here. Naturally, they also came to watch the fireworks. We came back late last night and missed it. Tonight is just right. Let's see what the fireworks are like. Old Madame Yi said with a smile. Li Jingma said somewhat helplessly. Xian is a marquis. All he does is fiddle with these useless things at home. Won't others laugh at him if word gets out? Madame Li slapped Li Jingma's arm and said angrily, "What's there to laugh at? Isn't Xian, just trying to celebrate the new year for us elders in Yinshan? How's he being laughed at? Also, I heard that the king of Wei and the king of Han came over personally to make the fireworks yesterday. If they can do it, why can't Xian do it?" Old Madame Yi laughed and tried to smooth things over. Yuzhu is right. It's the new year. Jima, don't be so serious. No matter what outsiders say, it can't compare to our family celebrating the new year together. Grandmother, quickly cover your ears. Big brother is going to light the fireworks. Lan ignored the quarrel between the adults. She tugged at old Madame Ye's arm and said excitedly, "Hey, okay. Grandmother will cover her ears right now." Old Madame Ye covered her ears and smiled kindly. Seeing this, the rest of the people also covered their ears. Fizz. On the other side, Li Zishuan had already lit the fuse of the fireworks with a lighter. Then, he quickly ran over and shouted, "Everyone cover your ears. The fireworks are going off." As soon as he finished speaking, there was a soft boom, and a firework shot into the sky with red sparks. With a loud boom, a beautiful flower bloomed in the night sky. The colors of the fireworks were a riot of colors. There were red, yellow, blue, green, purple, and pink. It looked extremely beautiful. Wow, it's so beautiful. Dad, Mom, Grandmother, look, the fireworks are so beautiful. Lanner's eyes widened as she chirped loudly. Old Madame Yi, Madame Li, and the others had already looked up and saw the fireworks in the sky. They all widened their eyes. Faced with this beautiful scene, they even forgot to breathe. It was so beautiful that it was tragic. It was so beautiful that it was hard to extricate oneself from it. Boom! Before the light of the first firework had even dissipated, the second firework had already soared into the sky. With another loud bang, an incomparably huge flower proudly bloomed. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and purple, it was a complete collection of colors. It was a gorgeous purple and brilliant red, decorating the night sky beautifully and gracefully, illuminating the earth as if it was daytime. This is the fireworks? Li Jingma's mouth was open so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in it. His breathing also became rapid. He could no longer say those words about Li Zishuan not doing his job because the beauty of the fireworks was far beyond his scope of understanding. In his opinion, such a magnificent scene was no different from a miracle. Chapter 1134. Damn, look, there's something happening at the Yamacho courtyard. Yinwang College. At this time, the students had just finished eating in the cafeteria and were returning to their dormitories. Suddenly, a loud noise came from the east side of Yinshan courtyard. No one knew who shouted, but the students, regardless of what they were doing, immediately looked in that direction. Finally, they saw a scene that they would never forget for the rest of their lives. Under the pitch-black sky, brilliant fireworks bloomed in the air. The flames continued to spread, looking like giant glowing peonies. They directly lit up half of the sky in the east. Damn, these are not the firecrackers from yesterday. These are probably Yamacho's new firecrackers. Li Tai turned his head to look and was immediately flabbergasted. Wow, these firecrackers are so beautiful. They are completely different from the ones you set off yesterday. Chinke. Yes, these are 100 times more beautiful than the ones the Academy set off yesterday. How can firecrackers be so colorful? This is amazing. Lika looked to the east and was in a daze. After a while, he said eagerly, Chinke, let's go to Yamacho's place to see these new firecrackers. Li Tai also wanted to go, but he was still clear-headed. He said, Ko, are you confused? It's late at night, and the Academy's gate is already closed. Yinwang College did not restrict students from entering and leaving during the winter holidays, but students were still not allowed to go out at night. This was for the safety of the students. There was a curfew in Chang, in city, let alone a small place like Yinshan. If they were to meet some bad guys or beasts outside, they would not even be able to find their bodies. Sun Zifen laughed and said, "Why don't we climb over the wall? Just like last time?" He had to admit that this guy was really the king of ideas. He could even come up with such a stupid idea. Li Tai rolled his eyes and said crossly, "Are you stupid, kid? We climbed over the wall last time to look for meat. Why are we going out this time? Going to Yamacho's place to see the fireworks? Isn't that walking right into their trap?" That's true." Sun Zifen scratched his head awkwardly and said gloomily, "Stop talking nonsense and focus on watching. We can see it clearly from here. The fireworks are almost finished." Li Tai said impatiently as he stared at the eastern sky. Yes. I have to hurry up and read it." The rest of them nodded vigorously. Obviously, they had all seen the 9-bang firecracker from Li Zishuan yesterday and subconsciously thought that there would only be 9 fireworks tonight. This was also one of the reasons why Li Tai was unwilling to leave the academy to watch the fireworks. Because according to this calculation, before they could climb over the wall, the fireworks on the other side would be finished. Bang, bang, bang. Flowers blossomed one after another under the night sky. Many students ran to the corridor on the 3rd or 4th floor of the teaching building to look as far as they could. 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10. Why isn't it done yet? Oh, today's firecrackers are not only different in color from yesterday's, but there are also more of them. We can finally feast our eyes on them. Tonight's firecrackers are really beautiful. Did Yamacho put the stars in the sky into the firecrackers? It's so beautiful. It's true. When the firecrackers explode in the sky, they are as dazzling as the stars in the sky. It's simply amazing. Sun Zifen said regretfully, sigh. If I had known that Yamacho was going to set off such beautiful firecrackers tonight, I would have just stayed at Yamacho's house during the day. Now, I can only watch from afar and not up close. It's so King unbearable. Hey, Zifen, you should think about Chang Chumo. That guy returned to Chang yesterday. He didn't get to watch it all tonight. Li Tai also felt a little regretful, but he knew how to comfort himself. When he thought of Chang Chumo, he immediately felt happy. He was only a prince, not a crown prince. He had to serve Li Heir and Zhang Sun every day in the palace. He had built his own residence outside the palace. Although Zhang Sun had sent people to urge him to return to Chang, and as soon as possible, he refused with the excuse of reviewing his homework. It was precisely because of this that he could see such a grand occasion tonight. Qingke, you're right. Cheng Chumo, that unlucky guy, returned to Chang, and so early. I'll have someone send him a letter tomorrow morning to tell him about tonight's situation. Sun Zifen's eyes lit up and immediately said cheekily, "Wow, grandfather, second uncle, second mother, come out and watch the firecrackers. Brother Xiaoxian is setting off firecrackers again, and tonight's firecrackers are different from last night's. It's so beautiful." In Li Gang's residence, Xiao and Ren heard the commotion and quickly ran out of the house. When he saw the colorful fireworks, he immediately shouted excitedly, "Boom! Boom! Boom!" Li Gang, his son, and daughter-in-law walked out of the house skeptically. When they saw the beautiful fireworks in the sky, they couldn't take their eyes off it. Such a miracle, Marquis Yong, and is indeed the son of an immortal. Such immortal means we mortals can't compare to them. Li Gang's second son, Li Lian, couldn't help but be dazed when he saw this scene. When he thought of other legends about Li Zishuan, he sighed. Smack! What immortal or not? This old man can tell you with certainty that Yamacho is just an ordinary person. It's just that he knows more than others. This old man plans to let Rin study at Yinhuang College in the future. This old man has a faint intuition that this era is about to change. Li Gang slapped Li Lian's arm and then sighed with a face full of emotion. Father, you can do whatever you want. I have no objections. Although Li Lian was puzzled as to why his father didn't want Li Gang to study Confucianism, He didn't have much say in such matters once Li Gang made a decision. He might as well agree. At the same time, the owners of Sun Simiao's and Yin Xiaoning's residences walked out of their houses and looked at the sky above Li Zixuan's residence. There were also the citizens of Plum Village and the Han family manor at the foot of Cloud Mountain. When they heard the commotion, they all walked out of their houses. They looked at the colorful fireworks at the peak of Cloud Mountain with mesmerized expressions. The sounds of praises and cheers were endless. Tonight's fireworks were also a feast for everyone's eyes. A total of 64 explosions lit up the sky above Yin Mountain for a full 10 minutes. It was far more beautiful and lasted longer than last night's fireworks. The beauty of fireworks was so short, but so bold and so passionate. Even if it only had a second of life, it had to be done perfectly and in the most brilliant way possible. The first time it appeared in the Tang Dynasty, it left an indelible impression in the hearts of thousands of people. Chapter 1135. Your Majesty, according to the palace guards, there seems to be a blazing fire in the direction of Yin Huang College. At Ganlu Palace, Lier had not gone to rest. He was still bitterly working overtime to read the memorials. At this moment, Zhao Song walked in from outside and bowed to Lier. Why do you say there seems to be a blazing fire? Whether there's a fire or not, can't you confirm such a simple thing? Lier's mind was sharp. He immediately caught the loophole in Zhao Song's words and asked with a frown. Zhao Song replied, Your Majesty, I also went up to the city gate to take a look. In the direction of Yinshan, there's not just a blazing fire. Other than that, there's red, orange, green, blue, purple, and all sorts of other colors. It looks like the rainbow divine light that was accompanied by the gods in ancient legends. Rainbow divine light? Lier was shocked. He stood up and said, Follow me to the Black Tortoise Gate Tower. Hey, Your Majesty, put on this fox fur coat. Zhao Song took a coat from the rack by the wall and said quickly. Now that the palace was heated, Lier was only wearing a single layer of clothing. It would be strange if he didn't catch a cold when he went out like this. Okay, Lier nodded. After he was armed, the master and servant left Taiji Palace and headed north to the Black Tortoise Gate Tower. If Li Zixuan knew that the fireworks he set off were mistaken for the rainbow divine light by Lier and Zhao Song, he would probably laugh his head off. At the same time, this also showed that Li Zixuan's pursuit of the path of the gods was not completely dead. If he believed in Li Zixuan's atheism, why would he make such a big fuss at night to see the so-called rainbow divine light? Greetings, Your Majesty. Lier brought Zhao Song to the Black Tortoise Gate Tower. When the general on the tower saw Lier, he quickly cupped his fists and bowed. Lier was unmoved. He looked straight in the direction of Yinshan, but all he saw was darkness. There was nothing. That was because the fireworks at Yinshan had already finished. Didn't they say there was a rainbow divine light? Why is there nothing? Lier frowned and said unhappily, Your Majesty, the seven-colored light in the direction of Cloud Mountain has just disappeared. Zhao Song looked at the soldiers guarding the city. The soldiers quickly stepped forward and answered. Oh, Lier's face was filled with disappointment. He looked in the direction of Cloud Mountain. After a moment of silence, he said, Send someone to Cloud Mountain tomorrow to find out what happened. Zhao Song bowed. Yes, Your Majesty. Lier flicked his sleeves and turned around to descend the city gate tower. There were no neon lights in this era. Naturally, there was no light pollution at night. Generally, the sky was pitch black except for the night of the full moon. The fireworks show on Yinshan dyed the sky red, which was quite conspicuous in the dark night. Therefore, not only did Zhao Song and the generals of the imperial city see the rainbow divine light in the night sky, but many people in Chang and city also saw it. Early the next morning, the people in the city immediately started discussing. It was close to the new year, and most people were preparing for the new year. They were busy all year round, and this was the only time they could have some free time. It was normal for them to gossip with their neighbors in the morning. Hey, old Lu, did you see the rainbow divine light in the east last night? I also faintly heard the sound of thunder over there. Hey, old boy, you saw it too? I thought I was the only one who saw it. Hey, do you think it's the divine light brought by the gods who descended from the heavens? Yo, that's possible. But shouldn't that direction be Cloud Mountain? Could it be that a literary star descended on Cloud Mountain last night? Hey, what you said makes sense. Yenhuang College's students are so outstanding. Who knows? There might be one or two literary stars among them. TSK. Yenhuang College is indeed a godly school. If my little brat can get in, even if I, Lou Dolly, die immediately, it will be worth it. With a lively atmosphere close to the new year, more and more people knew that the rainbow divine light had appeared in the sky in the east of Chang and city last night. There are all kinds of speculations. Some said that a divine immortal had descended to the mortal world. Some said that a divine light had descended from the sky. And some even said that a divine treasure had appeared. There were all kinds of different theories, but the most popular one was that a literary star had descended from Yenhuang College on Cloud Mountain. Yenhuang College had been completely pushed to the altar by word of mouth this time. This was something that Lisa Xuan had never expected. Your Majesty, after dinner last night, I heard from the servants in the mansion that there was a divine light in the east. I went to the tower to take a look and saw the rainbow divine light in the east. I guess that a divine immortal must have descended to the mortal world where the divine light descended. This is an auspicious sign. I congratulate your Majesty. I congratulate the Tang Empire. Taiji Palace, Morning Court. After the ceremony, a middle-aged official in his 30s came forward and bowed to Lier and said in a loud voice. Hearing this, the officials were stunned. Many of them had indeed seen the divine light in the east last night, but seeing it was one thing. Wasn't he flattering the emperor? Oh no, he was flattering the emperor. Wei Zhang's face darkened, and he said angrily, Su Sharon, don't talk nonsense. How can a divine light be auspicious? After that, he cupped his hands to Lier and said loudly, Your Majesty. I impeach Su Jingzong of the Secretariat for flattering your Majesty and speaking nonsense about a divine immortal. Your Majesty, please punish this person severely. Otherwise, it will hurt your Majesty's wisdom. Su Jingzong. This person was actually Su Jingzong, the censor of the Secretariat, the person who held the position of Prime Minister during Li Ji's era. Your Majesty, I am innocent. I was just speculating. How can I flatter your Majesty? May I ask if Wei Zhuqing saw the divine light in the east last night? Su Jingzong didn't get angry at all after being scolded by Wei Zhuqing. Instead, he defended himself and asked Wei Zheng back. Wei Zheng glared at him and said, So what if I saw it? Could it be that the heavenly light was an auspicious sign of the arrival of a true immortal? Su Sharon, before you investigate clearly, don't jump to conclusions. The great Tang's current prosperity is not due to an auspicious sign from the heavens, but due to His Majesty and the hundreds of civil and military officials working hard to achieve it. During Jingwan's era, the governance was rather clean. As the saying goes, when the water is too clean, there will be no fish. Under Li Er's leadership, the court was filled with upright officials. Wei Zhang's words were so persuasive that they could enlighten even the apathetic. Immediately, he gained the favor of many upright officials. Kong Ingda stepped forward and said, I agree with Wei Zhuqing's words. Auspicious omens can't be trusted. The great Tang is able to have peace today because of auspicious omens. Su Jingzong opened his mouth and was about to step forward to argue with old Kong when he heard Li Er's slightly angry voice. Stand down. The great Tang is surrounded by wolves. How can there be auspicious omens? If there's nothing, the court is dismissed. Chapter 1136. Inside the Taiji Palace. Hearing Li Er's angry rebuke, Su Jingzong was stunned. He didn't understand why Li Er rejected his idea so decisively. Was this still the same Emperor Li Er who loved to achieve great things? What he didn't know was that when Li Er woke up this morning, he received news from Yinshan. Last night, Li Zixuan was only setting off a new type of firecracker. Thinking of this, old Li's face burned. Someone else was setting off firecrackers in Yinshan, and he actually thought that there was a real immortal descending with colorful lights. If this matter were spread, wouldn't he, the emperor of the human world, be laughed at? Now, Su Jingzong's bootlicking had completely failed. The words auspicious sign from the heavens were extremely ear-piercing to Li Er's ears. He had already restrained himself by not throwing Su Jingzong into jail on the spot. Your Majesty is wise. Wei Zheng, Kong Ingda, and the others cupped their hands in front of Li Er in satisfaction and flattered him. If Old Li had made any other choice, Wei Zixuan would probably have said, "You are a tyrannical and fatuous emperor. Your Majesty, as you wish." At this time, it was undoubtedly irrational to continue with his admonishment. Su Jingzong sighed in his heart, cupped his hands in front of his chest, and obediently retreated. At that time, he was just a secretary under Li Mi. Later, Li Mi was defeated by Wang Shichong in the Great Battle Royale, and he himself became a stray dog. Wagong village naturally collapsed, and he also became a stray dog. Fortunately, he was full of poetry and was quite talented. He was discovered by Li Er. Soon, he seized the opportunity and entered Li Er's literature hall, becoming one of the 18 scholars. However, what was depressing was that although he was also Li Er's aide, compared to people like Zhang Sunwuji and Fang Xianling, his official fate was a little worse. Zhang Sunwuji had been prime minister for several years, but he was only a fifth-rank imperial secretary. Among the 18 scholars of King Qin's manor, he was the most unknown existence. Of course, he was unwilling, but in terms of strategy, he was not as good as Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui. In terms of foundation, he was not as good as Zhang Sunwuji. In terms of admonishment, he was not as good as Wei Zheng. Therefore, after much thought, he could only take this unorthodox path in hopes that Li Er would remember that he, the 18th scholar of the Duke of Qin's manor, had yet to be entrusted with an important task. If Li Zixuan knew what Su Jingzong was thinking, he might have laughed and said, "Old Su, don't make it so complicated. You're still young. Endure until all the other old officials in the imperial court have retired. That will be the day you rise to prominence." It's not a dream to become an official. Although the truth was not entirely like this, it was not far from it. In the end, Su Jingzong was able to become the prime minister. Of course, part of the reason was that he had no moral integrity, but more importantly, it was because he could endure. Qualifications were obtained through hard work. Cloud Mountain Villa, even if the outside world was turned upside down, Li Zixuan could only sit at home and watch the flowers bloom and wilt in front of the courtyard. He smiled as he looked at the clouds in the sky. The fireworks last night had left a huge impact on Lan, Han Yushi, Li Jingma, and the others. When they found out that Li Zixuan planned to make more fireworks for the new year, Madame Li agreed with both hands, and Lan even agreed with both hands and feet. At this time, Li Jingma could not say anything against it. He even subconsciously felt that if there were fewer fireworks for the new year, it would be a lot less interesting. San Bao, Fu, and the other loyal servants of the Li family were all summoned to Cloud Mountain to help make the fireworks. After breakfast, Li Zixuan ordered Pang Feiji to prepare a large amount of raw materials for the fireworks. He called San Bao and Fu over and taught them the steps of making fireworks. Coincidentally, Faubert also rushed over early in the morning. Li Zixuan might as well teach them all together. Anyway, the loyalty of these three people was unquestionable. Li Zixuan was not worried at all that they would leak the secret. "Young master, why don't we make the fireworks in the workshop? After all, if these things are not stored properly and cause an explosion, it is still very dangerous." After receiving the training, Faubert suggested to Li Zixuan. Last night, others were watching the show, but he saw the dangerous side of the fireworks from the show. Li Zixuan thought about it and felt that Faubert's words made sense. He nodded and said, "Yes, then let's do it. But the method of making fireworks must be kept a secret. San Bao and Fu will go to the workshop soon. Faubert, if you have any confidential matters, just let them do it. The secret recipe that I have given to the three of you must not be leaked under any circumstances. The reason why Lisa Schwan wanted the recipe to be kept a secret was not because he was worried that someone would get hold of the recipe and imitate the fireworks, thus affecting the profits of the workshop or using the gunpowder in the fireworks to harm others. In fact, he was not worried about this at all. Firstly, even if someone got hold of the recipe, it would be very difficult for them to mass-produce it without the advanced craftsmanship of the Strange Taste Pavilion. Secondly, the gunpowder in the fireworks was very weak and would not be able to cause mass destruction. What Lisa Schwan was really worried about was that someone would use the recipe of the fireworks to deduce the recipe of the gunpowder. Although the probability of this happening was very low, it was better to be safe than sorry. If someone really got hold of the recipe of the gunpowder, it would be a disaster for Tang Dynasty. By then, who knew how many good men would die from the gunpowder? Thus, as a precaution, Lisa Schwan gave a third of the recipe to Faubert, Sanbao, and Fu each. This way, unless the three of them betrayed him at the same time, and the person who got hold of the complete recipe was a peerless genius in chemistry, the real recipe of the gunpowder would not be leaked. In fact, the probability of this happening was basically zero. Young master, don't worry. This old man understands. Faubert could roughly guess the problem that Lisa Schwan was worried about. He clasped his hands and replied, Sanbao, Fu, you two better keep your mouths shut. This is the first time I, your young master, am entrusting you with such an important task. I hope that the two of you won't disappoint me. After saying that, Lisa Schwan looked at Sanbao and Fu and instructed them. The two of them had gone through thick and thin with him. When the flying snake tried to assassinate him outside the city, the two of them almost lost their lives as well. In terms of loyalty, there was no problem with them. Young master, don't worry. Sanbao, Fu, will definitely not disappoint you. The two of them said solemnly. Go. Lisa Schwan waved his hand and said with a smile. The three of them left. At this moment, there was a commotion outside. Lisa Schwan went out to take a look. It was Li Tai leading a group of students from the academy. Yamacho, aren't you a little too cunning? The firecrackers you taught us the day before yesterday were of inferior quality. The ones you set off last night were of superior quality. As soon as Li Tai came up, he acted like a resentful little wife and spoke in an aggrieved manner. Chapter 1137. What do you mean by inferior firecrackers? What do you mean by superior firecrackers? These things are called fireworks. In the Yunshan residence, Lisa Schwan looked at Li Tai, whose face was full of resentment, and said unhappily, Fireworks? Li Tai was stunned. The day before yesterday, when they came to Lisa Schwan's place to make firecrackers, Lisa Schwan did not tell them that those things were fireworks. However, when he thought of the scene last night, the little fatty narrowed his eyes and sighed. Yes, fireworks is a good name. It's worthy of its name. When that thing exploded in the sky last night, it did look like a flower. Yes. This name sounds better than firecrackers. Sun Ziffin also nodded and said, Yamacho, do you have any more of those fireworks from last night? We want to make a few ourselves. We can even buy them. Yes. That's right. Yamacho, do you have any more? We can even buy some with money. Li Tai agreed. Li Ku, Zhang Sun Chong, and the others looked over eagerly. Obviously, they had the same idea. They were the children of officials and did not lack money. However, the eyes of the rest of the students behind them dimmed. Not everyone in Yinhuang College came from wealthy families. However, Lisa Schwan's next sentence made their eyes light up. Lisa Schwan shook his head and said, I don't have any more of those fireworks at the moment. The workshop is stepping up production. However, you don't have to pay for them. I plan to hold a fireworks show at the college during the new year. All students can watch it for free. Take it as a thank you to the students for your hard work in Operation Warm Winter at the end of this year. Oh, thank you so much, Yamacho. Yamacho is so generous. As soon as Lisa Schwan finished speaking, Many students who lived in other places and could not go home for the new year because of the long distance suddenly cheered loudly. At this moment, they really felt that this winter break was worth it. No one in the college could deny the beauty of last night's fireworks. Moreover, these fireworks were currently unique in the entire Tang Empire and could not be bought with money. From this, one could see how precious they were. However, Li Zixuan did not hesitate to take out a large number of fireworks for the college students to celebrate the new year. How could they not be moved? How could they not cheer? Yamacho, how many fireworks will we set off? Class 1's Ku Shiqing asked loudly. His hometown was in the Bashu region, and he couldn't go home for the new year either. This year was his first time celebrating the new year in another place. Although it was Chang, in the capital of the Tang Empire, no matter how good it was outside, it couldn't compare to the warmth of home. Going home for the new year was something that the Chinese would never be able to let go of. However, Li Zixuan's actions made him feel some familiarity. Yamacho. How many fireworks will be set off during the fireworks display? The rest of the students reacted and asked in unison. Last night, Li Zixuan had set off 64 fireworks. Although it was far more than the previous 9, many people felt that it wasn't enough to satisfy their cravings. Li Zixuan smiled and announced an even more exciting news. Shiqing, I can't answer your question. I don't know how many fireworks I will set off because I plan to set off 2 hours. 2 hours? Everyone's breathing quickened and their eyes widened. Some people were frantically calculating how many fireworks they could set off in 2 hours. However, they were confused because it was impossible to calculate. Thank you, Yamacho. Thank you, Yamacho. No matter how many fireworks there would be a lot of fireworks. This time, the students could fully feast their eyes. Therefore, they cheered to their heart's content. Their voices were so loud that it gave Lan Er, who was in the backyard, a big fright. Li Tai, Sun Zifan, Zhang Sun Chong, and the other officials' children were depressed. They had to go back to Chang and for the new year. In that case, wouldn't they only be able to watch the gorgeous sky in Chang'an? Most of the students were satisfied with the answer. However, Li Tai and the others did not leave. The little fatty came up and said with a smile that, Yamacho, I wonder if there will be more fireworks? Every year during the new year in the palace, it's boring. If there aren't any fireworks to liven things up, it won't be perfect. Yes. Zhang Sun Chong, Sun Zifan, and the others nodded in agreement. Li Zixuan thought for a while and said, It's hard to say. Even if there are some left, there probably won't be many. Qingke, if you want some, it's best to wait until next year. Next year, Li Tai opened his eyes wide and shook his head. We can't wait. Yamacho, can't you ask the workshop to send more people to make more? What a joke. After seeing the charm of fireworks, Li Tai felt that waiting for one more day was too much, let alone waiting for next year. Li Zixuan said angrily, You brat, it's easy for you to say that. Don't you know how many days are left until the new year? Do you know how long it takes for the workshop to prepare the fireworks for the academy? If you really want to see the fireworks, just come to the academy. On the night of the new year, the academy will start to set off the fireworks at midnight. You can come after dinner in Chang'an City. Coincidentally, the curfew in Chang'an City will be lifted that night. In order to maintain the security of the capital, the Tang Dynasty followed the curfew system of the Han Dynasty. Of course, the walls could protect the safety of the people, but at the same time, it restricted their freedom and affected their livelihood. According to the rules, on special days, such as the Lantern Festival, the workshop could stay open all night. On these days, the people would be so excited that they would usually celebrate all night. That's the only way. Li Tai muttered gloomily. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he said, Oh right, Yamacho. Why don't you set the fireworks show in Chang'an City? At that time, the people in Chang'an City can feast their eyes. In fact, these were all excuses. He was just too lazy to run errands. After all, Chang'an City was more than 20 miles away from Yinshan City. Li Zixuan frowned and said, There are many people in Chang'an City, and the houses are close together. If we set off the fireworks on a large scale, it will easily cause a big fire. When His Majesty blames us, who can bear the responsibility? Although he said so, Li Zishuan thought in his heart, your master is now grounded in Yinshan City. If the fireworks show is changed to Chang and City, I won't be able to watch it. The master and disciple looked amiable on the surface, but they actually started a battle of wits and courage in secret. In the end, Li Tai gave up and said, all right then, when the time comes, we'll come to the academy to watch the fireworks show. All right, Yamacho. Last night, the people in Chang and City also saw the fireworks at Yinshan City. My father even sent someone over to ask what happened. Before leaving, Li Tai suddenly whispered to Li Zishuan. Chapter 1138. Oh, what did His Majesty say? In front of the Yinshan residence, Li Zishuan heard from Li Tai that Li Er had sent someone to Yinshan this morning to investigate. Li Tai rolled his eyes and replied, my father didn't say anything. But many people in Chang and City saw the colorful light last night and mistook it for the colorful heavenly light brought by the deities descending to the mortal world. 7 colored heavenly lights? Hearing this, Li Zishuan almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He had never expected that the first fireworks show in the Tang Dynasty would be related to immortals. Wasn't this 2F** King ridiculous? In fact, what he did not know was that Li Tai also thought so at first, but in order to save some face for his father, he deliberately concealed this point. After Li Tai left, Li Gang, Li Anren, and Yin Xiaoning came one after another. Their purpose was more or less the same, which was to see the fireworks. In desperation, Li Zishuan told them about his plan to hold a fireworks show in the academy during the new year. These people were the homeowners of Yinshan and planned to spend the new year in Yinshan. After hearing this plan, of course, they did not have any objections and returned with satisfaction. As for the other native of Yinshan, Sun Simiao, the old Taoist priest brought him to the county at the foot of the mountain early in the morning. Moreover, even if he had time, he would not be so bored as to come and ask Li Zishuan for fireworks. Compared to this, the old Taoist priest was more concerned about the strange medical skills in Li Zishuan's mind. The Imperial Palace. After the court, Li Er returned to the Ganlu Hall. Just as he took off his dragon robe, he could not help but say to Zhao Song beside him, I asked that kid to shut himself in Yinshan to reflect on himself, but he did it well. Today he has a hot pot feast. Tomorrow he will fiddle with some new firecrackers. His life is more comfortable than mine. Is he grounded? Or is he on vacation? It was no wonder that Li Zishuan complained. As a sinner, Li Zishuan did not reflect on himself sincerely all day long. Instead, he was treated like a master at home. On the other hand, although Li Zishuan was the emperor and was in charge of the life and death of the people in the world, he still had to work overtime every day to deal with state affairs. What's more, it's fine if you say you're living comfortably at home, but why did you have to make such a big commotion and make him mistakenly think that an immortal has descended to Earth? If it weren't for the fact that he had sent 100 riders to bring back the news early this morning, he might have really believed in Su Jingzong's nonsense in the imperial court and thought that the fireworks were rainbow-colored heavenly light, an auspicious omen, and felt complacent. Then the news on Cloud Mountain would be transmitted back to Chang. At that time, as the monarch of a country, where should he put his face? That was as awkward as it could get. Your Majesty, the Marquis of Yong, and has always had wonderful ideas. Otherwise, where would our Tang Empire have the curved plow, where we have the honeycomb coal and heaters, and where would we have the Yanhuang College? Zhao Song laughed dryly and spoke up for Li Zishuan without leaving a trace. If it weren't for the fact that this kid is truly talented, I would have removed him from his position long ago. Li Zishuan sat on the couch and said unhappily, Haha, is your Majesty angry at the Marquis of Yong'an? At this moment, Empress Zhongsun walked in from outside the hall. She nodded at Zhao Song and indicated that the latter could leave. Then, she walked to Li Zishuan's side and put down the lotus seed soup in her hand. She smiled gently and said, "Your Majesty has just finished the morning court and must be hungry. Your Majesty, please fill your stomach and warm your body first." Lisa Schwann's eyebrows finally relaxed. He took the lotus seed soup and smiled as he ate. "Haha, it's been hard on you. If my officials were as understanding as you, concubine Guanyin, I wouldn't be so tired usually." Empress Zhongsun smiled and said, "Your Majesty must be joking. 1,000 people have 1,000 faces. All the civil and military officials in the court have their own talents. Some are more stubborn, some are more tactful, and some are more cynical. They all have their own personalities. How can you expect everyone to have the same personality? This isn't good for handling government affairs." "Huh." Concubine Guanin's words are reasonable. Lisa Schwann's thoughts suddenly became clear. He put down the soup spoon and laughed. "Your Majesty, I heard that the rainbow sky at Yinshan last night was the Marquis of Yong's new type of firecrackers. Is it true?" Zhang Suin's eyes were smiling as she looked at Lisa Schwann and said. Lisa Schwann nodded and replied, "Yes, there is such a thing. I also just received the news this morning. It is said that the kid made a batch of firecrackers the day before yesterday. They can shoot into the sky and explode, but only the flames can be seen. Who knew that he would improve it again yesterday? So when the firecrackers shot into the sky and exploded last night, it became a rainbow of colors." Emperor Zhongsun blinked and said, "If I guess correctly, the Marquis of Yong, and making such a new toy at this time, should be to prepare for the new year, right?" Lisa Schwann thought for a bit and felt that Emperor Zhongsuin's guess was very likely true. He said unhappily, "This kid is already a married person, but he's still like a child, fiddling with these little toys all day. He doesn't have any manners of a marquis at all." Zhongsun shook her head and said, "Your Majesty, I feel that the Marquis of Yong'an's actions aren't just for his personal enjoyment. It is said that a large portion of Yinhuang College's students this year didn't have the chance to go home for the new year because of the Warm Tang Foundation's Operation Warm Winter. I think that the Marquis of Yong and probably wants these students to have a regretless new year at the academy. As the president of the Warm Tang Foundation, although she was only in name and didn't usually manage things, since the Yinhuang College's students stayed at the academy because of the Operation Warm Winter and didn't have time to go home, as the president, she more or less felt that she owed them. And Li Zixuan's actions of caring for the students made her have a good impression of Li Zixuan in her heart. Naturally, she also had to say a few words for Li Zixuan. Yes, if that's really the case, then this kid did the right thing. Li Zixuan nodded. He was half doubtful and half sure as he said, he has indeed taught this batch of Yinhuang College's students well. In the future, they will all be pillars of the country. We have discovered that this kid isn't good at being an official, but he is very competent as the Yamacho of Yinhuang College. Empress Zhongsun covered her mouth and laughed. Your Majesty is still the wise one. Back then, you stood your ground against the opinions of the masses and allowed the Marquis of Yong and to establish Yinhuang College. Only by using people to their fullest can they display their greatest abilities. For a genius like the Marquis of Yong, and only Yunshan can accommodate his talent. Hey, Maid Guanyin, don't praise him anymore. As long as that kid doesn't cause trouble for us every few days, we will be satisfied. Li Zixuan complained with deep resentment. Chapter 1139. The days passed, and soon it was the 28th of the 12th lunar month. What was strange was that Chang and did not even have a single snowfall at this time of the year. It was said that a timely snow promised a bumper harvest, but there was not even a single snow seed this year. How could there be a good harvest next year? The children were immersed in the joy of the upcoming new year, but some of the experienced farmers were frowning more and more. Li Zixuan, who was living in seclusion in the Cloud Mountain, suddenly had a trace of worry in his heart. He looked up at the sky and muttered to himself, if there is no snow for a year, the locust eggs in the ground will probably survive in large numbers. The next year's locust plague will definitely be fierce. Fortunately, The Tang Empire was prepared. The first voyage of the Tang Empire's fleet brought back a large amount of food. After that, Li Shaogong went to Lingnan to take up the position of the Left Commissioner of the Department of Shipping. He was in charge of the trade between the Nanyang countries and the Tang Empire. Gradually, he brought back a lot of food from other countries. Now, the Tang Empire's warehouses were all full, and the warehouse near Chang was still expanding. It could be said that the Tang Empire's warehouse had never been so full before. Young master, according to your instructions, we have distributed the 280 bicycles produced by the workshop to the members of the Chamber of Commerce. They should be selling them today. Faubert came over early in the morning to tell Li Zishuan this news. The workshop was now well-staffed. In just a few days, they could produce more than 200 bicycles. On average, they could produce dozens of bicycles a day. Li Zishuan was quite satisfied with this speed. He nodded and said, "Mem, I got it. Prepare a reward for the craftsmen and masters in the workshop. Let everyone go back for the new year. We will start work on the 7th of the first lunar month." Faubert smiled and replied, "Okay, young master. Everyone was waiting for you to say that." Li Zishuan smiled and said, "Don't be stingy with the reward. Give as much as you can. Everyone has worked hard this past year. All right, after the holidays, Faubert, you have to arrange a few people to guard the workshop. Fire prevention and theft prevention. The guards will get 5 times the salary during the new year. Ask around and see if anyone is willing." The new year was one thing, but the workshop couldn't be left unguarded. If it caught fire or attracted thieves, the loss would be too great. Faubert nodded and said, "Don't worry, young master. This old man will find a few craftsmen who live nearby and ask. We won't let the workshop's business go out of business." Yes, Chang'an City was particularly lively today because the citizens had received news from the Datong Daily that 280 bicycles had arrived in Chang and were about to be sold. The workshop only produced 40 bicycles during the first sale. Li Zishuan took out 5 bicycles as a gift and gave the rest to Chao Wendong, Feng Zhihua, Lin Wenyuan, and other members of the Chamber of Commerce. In addition, the members of the Chamber of Commerce would also privately detain 1 or 2 bicycles as gifts. In total, there were less than 30 bicycles entering the market for the first time. Those who managed to get their hands on the bicycles back then could not be said to be unlucky, because in just over a month, the price of the folk bicycles had been secretly inflated to 700 to 800 strings. It couldn't be helped. Some rich people just didn't lack money. They just wanted to enjoy themselves. For those middle-class families who were not very rich, it was a little frustrating. They could still afford a bicycle that cost 400 strings of coins, but 700 to 800 strings of coins? They couldn't bear to part with it. But now, the bicycles were being sold again, and they were directly supplied with 280 bicycles. This time, there were 280 bicycles, and no one was secretly detaining them. Compared to the previous sale, it was 10 times more. Although 280 bicycles were still not enough for the huge population of Chang'an City, the chances of getting one of the bicycles were undoubtedly higher. Therefore, countless citizens and wealthy businessmen rushed to the Chao family's Jianbao Pavilion, the Lin family's Qinyazhai, the Zhang family's Yixian, and other places. This was because the second batch of bicycles was also not being sold by the Strange Taste Pavilion. They were all given to the members of the Chamber of Commerce. Hey, the Strange Taste Pavilion is finally being generous today. According to the Datong Daily, there are 280 bicycles for sale today. Huh. According to my position, it will definitely be my turn today. Hee hee. Fortunately, this old man lives nearby. I have to thank Brother Tao for informing me in time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to make it in time. Huh. There's no sincerity in an empty thank you. After buying the bicycles, brother you won't be able to escape this meal? Of course. In a while, I will invite Brother Tao to Zuatian restaurant for a big meal. With a bicycle, it will be much more convenient to go to places to pay New Year's greetings. Yes. This foolish brother thinks so too. In front of the Lin family's Qinyazhai, there was a long line. The people at the front were naturally elated, while the people at the back were dejected. Just like what the 2 old men at the front had said, It was almost the new year. If they could buy a bicycle, how cool would it be to ride a bicycle around to greet the new year? Everyone would feel embarrassed. Hee, madam, how is it? Your husband's previous judgment was correct, right? For this second batch of bicycles, our family has a total of 34 bicycles. On the second floor of Chinya Zhai, Lin Wenyuan looked at the dense line of customers downstairs and smiled as he spoke to Madame Lin beside him. Madame Lin couldn't help but say, "There are only 30 bicycles in total. If we sell them, we can only earn about 3,000 strings of cash. Look at how happy Master is." Lin Wenyuan shook his head and said, "Madam, you don't understand, right? This old man heard that this batch of bicycles only took 5 days for the strange interest pavilion to produce. Previously, because the workshop was busy producing honeycomb coal and coal furnaces, they didn't have time to make bicycles. Madam, think about it. If the workshop could concentrate on producing bicycles, how many bicycles would they be able to produce in a month? More than 3,000. With such a huge profit, you don't know how much other people would covet it. Besides, Marquis Workshop doesn't only have bicycles. In the future, there will definitely be other products. Also, with so many people coming to our Chinya Zhai to buy bicycles, it will also drive the sales of other things in our shop. If we really want to calculate, we definitely earn more than 3,000 strings of cash today. Hee. From what Master said, won't we be able to earn back the money we invested in the workshop next year?" Madame Lin's eyes lit up as she asked with a smile. Puffed. Lin Wenyuan chuckled and said, "It won't just be earning back the money. There will definitely be a lot of extra money. Let's not talk about other things. Just the 45,000 strings of cash that we bought from the Chamber of Commerce. If we sell it for 60,000 strings of cash, there will definitely be people who will buy it." Madame Lin subconsciously thought that her husband was bragging. She rolled her eyes and said, "I don't care about the rest. The important thing is that we finally have some extra money for the new year." Lin Wenyuan's old face darkened. He quickly coughed twice to hide his embarrassment. Previously, he had taken out more than 40,000 strings of cash to invest in the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce, causing the Lin family's shop to be in a tight spot. Without liquid capital, doing business would naturally be a big hindrance. They had to scrape together funds left and right to barely survive until now. During this period, the Lin family could be considered to have lived frugally for a long time. Now that Li Zishuan had finally released a large number of bicycles, the Lin family could finally use this opportunity to earn back some money. Chapter 1140. Young Master. All the fireworks produced by the workshop have been moved to the Academy's warehouse. Brother Mo Zhong will arrange for someone to guard them. I guarantee that there won't be any accidents. When it was close to noon, Sanbao rushed back from the workshop and reported to Li Zishuan. The workshop had received orders from Li Zishuan early in the morning to start holiday. The batch of fireworks produced by the workshop naturally had to be handed over before the workers left. Li Zishuan did not instruct these matters. It was all decided by Sanbao, Faubert, and Fu. Well done. Li Zishuan nodded, then looked at Sanbao and asked with a smile, "How is it? Have you and Fu gotten used to the workshop recently?" Sanbao was flattered and bowed. "Young Master, what are you talking about? It's my and Fu's good fortune to be able to work for you. What's there to not get used to?" Li Zishuan said angrily, "You rascal. You're such a smooth talker. You can laugh and joke around normally, but when you're working, you have to pay more attention." Sanbao quickly said seriously, "Young Master, you're right. Sanbao will remember it. Go." Li Zishuan waved his hand and said, "Yanhuang College." "Hongyi, did you return to Chang'an again?" In front of Guanghua Building, Chun Tianhua saw Hua Hongyi walking towards him. Seeing his travel-worn appearance, he knew that this fellow had just returned from outside. Hence, he smiled. Although the three of them lived in Chang, and they were already used to life in the academy. Seeing that most of the students did not go home during the winter break, they stayed in the academy. Coincidentally, the academy's canteen was free of charge during the winter break. The benefits were amazing. As for the Chinese New Year, They planned to go back for a reunion dinner and come back to the academy to watch the fireworks at night. Huh, Tianhua. You don't know how lively Chang'an's West City is today. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that tens of thousands of people came out to watch. Hua Hongyi walked over with a beaming face and laughed heartily. Speaking of which, during the winter vacation, the students who didn't go home didn't just stay at home in the academy. Most of them often went to Chang'an City when they had nothing to do, especially those students from other places. It was not easy for them to come to Chang'an City to study, but the academy was located outside of Chang'an City. Moreover, they usually had a lot of homework and had no time for other things. Now that it was the winter vacation, how could they live up to themselves if they didn't go to Chang'an City for a walk? Moreover, Yin Mountain was only about 20 miles away from Chang'an City. Along the way, they might meet some villagers from the Han Village, Plum Village, or other villages who were driving their ox carts and planning to go to the market. With a few polite words, the villagers would usually happily give them a ride. This would save them a lot of effort. This morning, Hua Hongyi rode on Old Hu's ox cart to Chang'an. Is it because of the bike? Shen Tianhua rolled his eyes and said indifferently. Obviously, he had already read today's Tang Daily. Hua Hongyi gave a thumbs up and praised. Hee, it's the bike. Tianhua is indeed Tianhua. You don't even have to go out, and you already know what's going on. Amazing. TSK. Today's scene is really crowded. Even if Yamacho released 280 bicycles, they would definitely be sold out by this morning. Chun Tianhua interrupted him impatiently. All right, stop talking nonsense. I say, didn't you say that you've already planned out your first novel? Why don't you take advantage of the winter break to start writing? You have to know that next year's homework will definitely be more intense. Hua Hongyi was stunned when he heard this. He then said, Tianhua, you don't know. Actually, regarding this novel, I've already started writing it a long time ago. It's almost done. Chen Tianhua was suddenly energized. He said with great interest, Oh, you finished writing it so quickly? Can you let me take a look first? Hua Hongyi scratched his head and said embarrassedly, I meant that the outline is almost done. Puffed. Chen Tianhua almost vomited blood. If the person in front of him wasn't his best friend, he would have punched him. Tianhua, this novel of mine is a little special. I'm sure you've never seen or heard of it before, so it'll be very difficult to comprehend it. You can't force the progress. Hua Hongyi quickly explained. Chen Tianhua looked at him suspiciously and said helplessly, All right, since that's the case, do whatever you want. Just let me and Feichen know when you're ready to release the book. Of course. Hua Hongyi nodded. Suddenly, he saw many students crowding around the Guanghua building. He pointed in that direction and asked curiously, Tianhua, why are they crowding around there? Chen Tianhua looked in the direction Hua Hongyi was pointing at. Then, he looked away and answered, In the morning, the Yamacho sent people to move the fireworks for the new year here. They used a lot of ox carts, countless of them. Now, the fireworks have been placed in the warehouse on the first floor. Those people are crowding around the warehouse, probably wanting to see the fireworks in advance. What? The fireworks are here? Damn, I want to see it too. Hua Hongyi opened his eyes wide and ran over excitedly. The fireworks were his biggest anticipation for this year's new year. Master, the Strange Taste Pavilion Workshop has been established. In just a few days, they can make almost 300 bicycles. The process requires iron, sulfur, and other raw materials. They are completely self-sufficient. This is terrifying. Chongren Square, Zhangsun Wuji's house. The layman just enjoys the show, while the expert appreciates the skill. While the people outside were crazy about the 280 bicycles, the experts saw the terrifying production capacity and efficiency of the Strange Taste Pavilion Workshop. From the looks of it, their way of smelting iron is undoubtedly more efficient. It's hard to imagine that Li Zixuan has such achievements in smelting iron. I have really underestimated him. Zhangsun Wuji sighed with his hands behind his back. Master, with the Strange Taste Pavilion Workshop, our smelting speed will definitely not be as fast as theirs. If the Marquis of Yong and wants to snatch business from us, we won't be able to do so." The middle-aged man standing below Zhang Sun Wuji, who looked like a manager, complained carefully. Zhang Sun Wuji squinted his eyes. If the manager could think of this problem, how could he not? However, don't bother about this. No matter what, during the cholera outbreak, Li Zishuan saved Chong'er's life. If we were to fall out with him because of the business of the workshop, wouldn't we be a joke? Moreover, from the looks of it, the iron produced by the Strange Taste Pavilion workshop is for their own use. Li Zishuan doesn't have the intention to sell the iron to others. We don't need to complicate things. After a moment, Zhang Sun Wuji shook his head and gave the final word. Chapter 1141. The largest iron-making workshop in Chang, and was owned by Zhang Sun Wuji's family. After all, it was still the era of salt and iron officials. Even if there were iron-making workshops among the commoners, the scale wouldn't be large. Zhang Sun Wuji used his status as a relative of the emperor to not only own an iron mine, but he could also forge iron openly. Not only that, the imperial court would purchase large amounts of iron from the Zhangsun family every year. The Zhangsun family could be said to be filthy rich through the iron-making business. Of course, this was the special favor that Emperor Li, the second emperor, gave to the Zhangsun family. There is probably no other family in the entire Tang Dynasty who could do this. However, all of this was already a thing of the past. Now that the Curious Pavilion had become the largest private iron-making workshop in Tang Dynasty, the Zhangsun family was the first to bear the brunt. Their business would definitely be affected. If the other party wasn't Li Zishuan, Zhang Sun Wuji might have taken action to suppress them. If this happened 30 years later, no matter who the other party was, Zhang Sun Wuji would mercilessly suppress them. This was because by then, he would already be in complete control of the imperial court. Why would he have such fear? However, there weren't so many ifs in this world. The reality was that the current Li Zishuan couldn't be suppressed even if he wanted to. Li Zishuan, who was far away in Yinshan, didn't know of Zhang Sun Wuji's thoughts. Actually, he was worried that his iron-making workshop would make Zhang Sun Wuji unhappy. However, after thinking about it, with his current status and connections, it wouldn't be easy for Zhang Sun Wuji to bully him. Furthermore, he had saved Zhang Sun Chang's life. Even if Zhang Sun Wuji wasn't grateful, he couldn't possibly bite the hand that fed him, right? If that was really the case, the old fox's reputation would definitely be tarnished. However, even though he wasn't worried about Zhang Sun Wuji's revenge, Li Zishuan still left some leeway. For example, the iron produced by the Curious Pavilion was never sold to the public. This was because the daily consumption of iron in the workshop was huge. On the other hand, Li Zishuan was taking care of Emperor Zhangxuan's face and didn't want to make things too difficult for Zhang Sun Wuji. Ever since he transmigrated to the Tang Dynasty, other than his family and elders, Emperor Zhangsun was someone who took care of him. Li Zishuan naturally respected this woman from the bottom of his heart. On the other side, the 280 bicycles were all sold out in just half a day. Those who managed to snatch the car were still the lucky ones, as they could easily earn hundreds of strings of cash by casually selling it. In the end, there were too many monks and too little gruel. The number of bicyclists in Chang was still very large. Unlike the last batch, which only had dozens of bicycles, there were now 280 bicycles in Chang. People could often be seen riding bicycles on the streets, which was impossible a month ago. Nowadays, the children in Chang and city had one more fun, which was to wait on the streets for rich people to come by on bicycles. Once they saw one, these naughty children would crazily chase after the bicycle on their scooters. Speaking of which, these people were really reckless. On such a cold day, they were actually willing to ride bicycles or skateboards in the cold wind. If they were in modern times, they would definitely be idiots. Cloud Mountain Villa. The New Year was the day after tomorrow. Although there were few people in Cloud Mountain, the New Year's atmosphere was very strong. Every household had already prepared all the New Year's goods, such as chicken, duck, fish, tea, wine, soy sauce, North and South stir-fried goods, sugar bait, fruits, and so on. In addition to these, every household had to prepare some gifts for visiting relatives and friends during the new year. Families with children also had to buy new clothes and hats for their children to wear during the new year. However, for a big family like the Lee family, they did not lack these. This girl, wore new clothes every day. No one would object. What surprised Li Zixuan was that there was actually bacon in the New Year's goods. He thought that this thing did not exist in the Tang Dynasty. In fact, this was his own ignorance. Bacon had a very long history in China. At least in the era of Confucius, the ancestors knew how to make bacon. Confucius had a special fondness for bacon. He once said, "As long as you give me 10 strips of bacon, I will teach you." Confucius had 3,000 disciples and 72 followers. If they all gave him 10 strips of bacon as filial piety, this old man would not be able to finish it even if he opened his stomach. Later, it became the custom of students giving their teachers bacon. However, in the ancient language, it was called shu xiao, which meant a bundle of dried meat. TSK. This bacon stir-fried with garlic core is a delicious dish. Wife, your husband will teach you a new dish in the afternoon. Li Zixuan looked at the bacon hanging in the house and said with joy, there were still garlic sprouts in the winter because garlic was a crop with relatively strong cold resistance. It could withstand a short period of -10 degrees Celsius. If the temperature below -10 degrees Celsius was low for a long time, or if the temperature was extremely low, garlic sprouts would easily freeze and die. However, the temperature in Chang and city was not that low this year, so it was not difficult to find some garlic core. This was the first time Han Yushi heard of this dish. She thought for a while and nodded. Okay, hubby, you can tell me later and I'll do it. Hey, that's right, my wife. I asked you to buy more pork. Did you not buy it? His original plan was to buy a batch of pork before the new year and give some to each household in his village as an auspicious sign for the new year. However, he realized that there was not enough pork in the New Year's goods at home. Han Yushi looked at Li Zixuan angrily and said, "Husband, you asked for more than 10,000 pounds of pork. Do you expect to pile it all up at home? Don't worry. Uncle Wang has already taken care of it. He bought more than 100 pigs and temporarily raised them in the field in front of Uncle Hu's house. Uncle Wang plans to distribute the pork to each village tomorrow. Then, the village chief of each village will personally distribute the pork to the villagers." Oh. Li Zixuan touched his nose embarrassedly. Then he suddenly thought of the pig slaughtering banquet in the village in his previous life. He said, "Wife, we will distribute the pork tomorrow, but you have to let Faubert keep 8 pigs. I plan to hold a pig slaughtering banquet in each village during the new year the day after tomorrow." Pig slaughtering banquet? Husband, what is a pig slaughtering banquet? Han Yushi asked curiously. Li Zixuan thought for a while and replied, This pig slaughtering banquet's to put different parts of a pig, both inside and outside, into a big pot, half boiling and half steaming. Then, the meat in the big pot can be divided into many dishes, such as garlic minced meat, garlic minced heart meat, firewood meat, hand-chopped liver, pickled vegetables stewed with white meat and blood sausage, and so on. Wife, let me tell you, don't think that the pig slaughtering banquet is tasteless just because there are so many things cooking together. In fact, if it is done well, it will be delicious. Chapter 1142, Cloud Mountain Residence. Hearing Li Zixuan talk about the pig slaughtering feast so seriously, Han Yushi was also a little tempted, but, husband, although the pig slaughtering feast is good, don't forget that you are still grounded by His Majesty. Grounding. The desire for the pig slaughtering feast that had just appeared on Li Zixuan's face instantly disappeared without a trace. Once a person was pleased with himself, it was easy for him to forget himself. He was a typical example of this. All right then, let Uncle Wang distribute all the pork to the villagers. Li Zixuan waved his hand dispiritedly. At first, he thought that being grounded for 2 months was no big deal. After all, he liked to stay at home. However, now that it was close to the new year, he realized that he couldn't even leave Cloud Mountain. How frustrating. Sigh. Now I have no choice but to be an otaku, even if I don't want to. Li Zixuan sighed in his heart. He had heard what his father-in-law had said to him earlier. He knew that he had caused too much trouble this time. Taking advantage of being grounded, he had to lay low for a period of time and let everyone gradually forget about the Chui family. That was the wisest move. During this period, Li Zixuan was determined not to cause any trouble and let others have a hold on him. Puffed. Han Yushi saw that Li Zixuan was as dejected as a child who didn't get a toy. She felt an inexplicable sense of pity in her heart. She couldn't help but giggle and say, "Husband, why are you so dejected? If we can't have the pig slaughtering feast this year, we can have it next year. Anyway, there will be a new year every year." Li Zixuan shook his head helplessly and forced a smile. "Haha, wife, you don't have to comfort me. It's just a pig slaughtering feast. Your husband is not a greedy person." Han Yushi smiled when she heard that. She thought disapprovingly, "Husband, if you are not a greedy person, then who in the world would have the nerve to call themselves greedy people?" The 30th of December, New Year's Eve. Finally, it was New Year's Eve. Yin Lide and Yin Libin had already moved to Yunshan 2 days ago to live with Yin Xiaoning. Because the imperial court would give the officials a Lunar New Year's Eve holiday every year, there were a total of 7 days. It was the 3 days before Lunar New Year's Eve, the first day of the Lunar New Year, the second day of the Lunar New Year, and the third day of the Lunar New Year. Therefore, Old Yan's family happened to be here for a holiday. Although Chang Yaojin and Qin Xiong both had houses in Yanshan, of course, it was given to them by Li Zixuan. They still had many connections in Chang'an, so they had no time to come over during the day. It was rare for Sun Simiao to give himself a day off today. He suspended the free clinic activity at the foot of the mountain. The Hu family had been helping him tidy up his house and buy New Year goods these few days. It could be said that they had worked hard. Therefore, although the old Taoist priest had been running down the mountain recently, he was quite well prepared for the new year. In the afternoon, Li Zixuan, the host, invited the big group of people to his house for a meal. It was considered a welcome for them to celebrate the new year in Yunshan. To be honest, those who could be long-term residents of Cloud Mountain were not simple people. Every one of them was quite knowledgeable, and most of them knew each other. Therefore, during the banquet, there were toasts and conversations, and it was very lively. The meal lasted until around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Li Zixuan lay at home for a while, then brought Sanbao out and walked towards the academy. He was indeed grounded at home now, but Yanwang College was also his home. The current situation was that as long as he didn't leave Yanshan, no one would find trouble with him. After entering the academy, Li Zixuan went straight to the canteen. He found a canteen manager, Wang Daho, and said, "Daho, have you prepared the flour and ingredients that I asked you to prepare?" Eru, you're here too?" Li Zixuan saw Wang Eru, who was busy not far away. When Wang Eru heard him, he quickly ran over and said, "Yes, young master. Today, the Drunken Immortal restaurant is on holiday, so I came here to help my brother. At the same time, the whole family will celebrate the new year at the academy." In the modern era, during the new year, the business was the best in the restaurant industry. Usually, the employees of the restaurants and hotels would not be on holiday at this time, because many people were too lazy to prepare a reunion dinner, so they would celebrate the new year at the restaurant. But it was different in the ancient era. In this era, the concept of home was still very strong in people's hearts. During the new year, basically no one would eat a reunion dinner outside. Therefore, Li Zixuan simply let everyone in the Drunken Immortal restaurant go on holiday. Li Zixuan smiled and nodded, then asked, "Eru, you brought your father and mother over too?" Wang Eru quickly waved his hand and said, "How can I? This is the academy. How can my father and mother come in casually? I'll let my father and mother wait at a farmer's house at the foot of the mountain. After my brother and I are done with our work, we will go down the mountain to find them and have a reunion dinner together." "Huh!" Li Zixuan slapped the back of Wang Eru's head and said, "It's so cold now. How can you leave your parents at the foot of the mountain? Although Yanwang College does not allow outsiders to come in casually, you and Dahu are not outsiders. Hurry up and bring your father and mother over here. Your whole family can celebrate the new year with so many students at the academy today. Speaking of which, if possible, who wouldn't want to have a family reunion? However, the academy was a sacred place for scholars. How could outsiders enter just because they wanted to? Therefore, Wang Eru did not dare to bring his parents directly to the academy. At this time, after listening to Li Zishuan, Wang Eru and Wang Dahu were touched. They bowed and said, "Thank you, young master, for thinking highly of us." After that, Wang Eru ran out of the cafeteria happily. Wang Dahu finally had the time to answer Li Zishuan's question. "Young master, the flour and ingredients that you asked for are all prepared here. The quantity is definitely enough." Li Zishuan laughed and said, "Ha, that's great. Bring everything to the table. Today, I will let the students have a dumpling-making competition." It was the new year. How could it be called the new year if they did not make dumplings? Wang Dahu was stunned and said doubtfully, "Dumplings? Yamacho, what are dumplings? At first, I thought you were going to make wontons." Wontons? Ahem. Actually, the two are similar. It's just that the names are different. In the future, it will be dumplings, no wontons. We must eat dumplings for the new year. Li Zishuan quickly explained. In fact, there was no such thing as dumplings in the Tang Dynasty, but there were dumplings in the Tang Dynasty. Today's wontons are shaped like a crescent moon. They are eaten everywhere. This was the first sentence that talked about dumplings in ancient Chinese literature. It was written by the Northern Qi writer and educator, Yanji Tue. Although Yanji Tue said wontons, he said crescent moon-shaped wontons. Then, wouldn't crescent moon-shaped wontons be dumplings? In the middle of the Tang Dynasty, there was a new name for dumplings, jiaowan. In the Song Dynasty, in order to distinguish it from wontons, people began to shape it into a crescent moon shape. It was actually a triangular shape with two pointed corners and was called jiaozi. Zhou Mi of the Song Dynasty even wrote in his Old Stories of Wulin that there were records of multicolored buns, multicolored dumplings. Since jiaozi and dumplings both appeared, the name dumplings appeared naturally. Therefore, dumplings was officially named in the Song Dynasty. Wang Dahu nodded his head in confusion. Li Zishuan said to Sanbao, "Go tell Mo Zhong and the rest to inform all the students in the school to come to the cafeteria to participate in the dumpling-making competition." "Yes, young master." Chapter 1143. Dumplings? We're dumplings. In the Guanghua building of the Yanwang Academy, Ku Shiqing was reviewing his homework. He used to be the top student in the School of Mathematics. Ever since the new students of the School of Mathematics joined the Yanwang Academy, he had never been the top student again. As a person who had once been in the clouds, if he accidentally fell halfway, he would definitely want to climb back up again. Ku Shiqing was the same person. In the past 6 months, there was not a moment when he did not want to climb to the top again. Since he could not go home during the winter break, he had been revising his homework in the hope that he could deepen his understanding of engineering. When he heard the news from his classmate, he could not help but wonder. Zhang Ziran scratched his head and looked confused. He said, "I don't know what dumplings are either. Anyway, Yamacho asked us to go, so we'll go." Today was New Year's Eve. Most of the students in Class 1 had returned to Chang'an for the new year. There were less than 15 students left. The 2 of them were from out of town, so they could only stay in the school to study by themselves. "Yamacho is here? Let's go and see." Ku Shiqing's eyes lit up as he stood up. Ever since the fall of the Chui family, Li Zishuan rarely came to Yanhuang College except for the hot pot banquet. It was said that he had been staying at home and rarely went down Yanshan. This made Ku Shiqing a little worried. Although Li Zishuan did not say it, his intuition told him that the Chui family had brought a lot of trouble to Li Zishuan. If this was a year ago, Ku Shiqing wouldn't have cared if Li Zishuan was dead or alive. However, in the past year, Li Zishuan's vast knowledge and powerful charisma had won over most of the students in the school. He was one of them. Li Zixuan was now the one and only spiritual idol in his heart. Of course, he would be worried if something happened to his idol. The two of them walked together and arrived in front of the cafeteria. At this time, many students had gathered in front of the cafeteria. The crowd was noisy, and everyone was talking about the dumpling competition. Jiayin, what are dumplings? How would I know? But since these dumplings need to be wrapped by hand, and Yamacho told us to come to the cafeteria, these dumplings must be eaten. Therefore, I'm guessing that these dumplings are probably food similar to steamed buns or hundun. F***CK. Jiayin, your analysis makes sense. So we're all in for a treat tonight. Huh, was there even need to ask? Since it's Yamacho's new food, it definitely won't taste bad. That makes sense. Hey, Yamacho said it was a dumpling making competition. Does that mean there will be a competition later? Yeah, since it's a competition, there must be a winner and a loser. I wonder what surprises Yamacho will bring us this time. Ku Shiqing and Sung Ziren looked at each other. They found a group of students from Class 1 and walked over. Is everyone here? In the cafeteria, Mo Zhong pushed open the door and entered. Before he could speak, Li Zixuan raised his head and asked. Mo Zhong cupped his fist and answered, Yamacho, everyone is here. Since it's New Year's Eve, there are only 300 students left in the academy. The rest have gone home for the new year. Li Zixuan nodded and said, Okay, I'll go out and talk to them about something. By the way, Mo Zhong, the guards of the academy must be vigilant tonight. This place is decorated with lanterns and decorations, and there will be fireworks at midnight. It's easy to catch fire, so you have to strengthen the patrols. It's been hard on all of you these 2 days. You can't reunite with your families during the new year, and you still have to guard your posts. From tomorrow onwards, all of you will go home and rest for a few days. I'll let Pang Feiji take care of the academy's safety for the time being. And Mo Zhong didn't expect Li Zixuan to be so considerate of the guards. He couldn't help but feel touched. Yamacho, brothers, it's not hard at all. We've been in the academy for so long, and this place has long become our home. There's no need to reunite. These words were not out of politeness. People's hearts were made of flesh. Ever since they came to Cloud Mountain, they could clearly feel how Li Zixuan treated them. He really treated the academy as his own home. Li Zixuan smiled and said, Okay, I'm very happy that all of you feel a sense of belonging in the academy. However, you still have to take a break. All of you go back and rest for a few days before coming back. You can't reunite with your families tonight, but you have to make it up to them tomorrow. And Mo Zhong thought for a while and finally bowed deeply to Li Zixuan and said, Thank you, Yamacho, for your understanding. Brothers, go back and rest for a few days before coming back. Okay. Li Zixuan nodded and walked out of the door. He couldn't help but feel a wave of happiness in his heart. Mo Zhong and the others were originally from the Mo clan, and the academy's imperceptible influence on them during this half a year had finally caused them to develop a sense of belonging. He reckoned that it wouldn't be long before this group of members from the Mo clan would completely belong to the academy, although they might still think of themselves as belonging to the Mo school. In their behavior, the line between Mo school and engineering would become more and more blurred. Yamacho is out. Quiet down, all of you. Yamacho is out. As soon as Li Zixuan came out, the students in front of the cafeteria became restless. Then they automatically quieted down. This was Li Zixuan's prestige in the hearts of the students. No one could replace him. At the same time, this also showed that the first batch of students from Yanhuang College truly love engineering, the academy, and, no, it was worship and respect for Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan stood on the steps in front of the cafeteria, facing the fanatical, worshipful, and respectful gazes of the students, and said, Today is New Year's Eve, and tomorrow is New Year's Day. On behalf of all the teachers of Yanhuang College, I wish you all a happy new year. I wish you all the best in your studies and progress in the new year. By the way, I'll also give you a poem. Hard work ends today. The youth can still be praised. In modern times, after New Year's Eve, the first day of the first lunar month was called the Spring Festival. However, In the Tang Dynasty, there was no such thing as the Spring Festival because there was only the lunar calendar. The first day of a new year was called New Year's Day, Yuan Day, Yuan Zheng, or Sui Day. As for the poem, Li Zishuan said, it was an encouraging poem sent to his younger brother, Su Zhe, during the new year by Su Shi, an 8th rank official in Shaanxi. The general idea was, young people should seize this day well. Only then will they have the spirit to guide the country. Thank you, Yamacho. I also wish Yamacho a happy new year. The students were secretly praising Li Zishuan's literary talent and poetry as they cupped their hands towards Li Zishuan and said in unison. Li Zishuan was in a good mood and laughed, ha. Okay, I'll accept your blessings. Let's stop with the pleasantries. Next, I'll tell you the rules of today's dumpling making competition. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.